Chapter 130. This was another plot that shouldn't have happened. In the original plot, Ziqing wouldn't have said anything about the tomb of the god of sin. She would have led Mingxi and the others to that path without leaving a trace, and then pretended to have found an ancient tomb. She wouldn't have said anything about the tomb of the god of sin at all. But now, Ziqing had said something that shouldn't have been said. The plot had changed again, and it was a change in the main plot. Irene didn't know if this was good or bad for her. After listening to Ziqing's explanation, everyone was very interested in the tomb of the god of sin. They agreed to follow the map to find the tomb of the god of sin tomorrow morning. After finding the tomb of the god of sin, it would depend on their own luck. Whatever they found would be theirs. Ziqing also knew that her current strength was considered very high among her peers. It wouldn't even be a problem for her to challenge someone of a higher level. But with her current strength, she wasn't qualified to discuss the distribution of treasures with Mingxi and the others. Fortunately, Mingxi and the others were good people. They never thought of killing others and stealing their treasures. They didn't have any objections to Ziqing's suggestion that whatever they found would be theirs. Mingxi and the others felt that since Ziqing was the one who found the map, she should get more things. But Ziqing didn't ask for more things. Instead, she asked them to find their own opportunities. No matter what Ziqing thought, whether she really felt that this was better or for some other reason, the final distribution was decided. The first night in the two-realm battlefield was very quiet. This silence seemed to be the calm before the storm, and it made people feel very uneasy. Nighttime was the favorite time for the reptiles living underground to move around. There weren't any large aggressive magical beasts in the two-realm battlefield, but there were reptiles. These creatures liked the dark. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't appear during the day. They would only come out to play at night and catch some food that they liked to eat. These reptilian creatures were not particular about what they ate. As long as it was edible, they would eat it. Even humans would become their food. These reptilian creatures that lived at night were every adventurer's biggest enemy. No one knew where they came from, and they came and went without a trace. Although their attack method was very simple, and even their spiritual intelligence was very low, their bodies were extremely hard. No matter if it was magic or swordsmanship, it was difficult to pierce through them. Fortunately, these little reptiles were very timid. As long as you scared them, they would not hesitate to abandon you and run away. If you couldn't beat them, then sorry, these reptiles would gnaw on your skin and bones. It's so quiet. I keep feeling that the surroundings are too quiet. This was not the first time that Elena had come to the two-realm battlefield, but this was the first time that she felt uneasy. It is indeed too quiet. The person in charge of keeping watch tonight should be more careful. Mingxi furrowed his brows as he thought, suppressing the uneasiness in his heart. Fengwu's gaze looked in a certain direction at this moment. Her expression was a bit strange, which made a juror, who had been paying attention to Fengwu from time to time, tug on her sleeve. "What's wrong?" a juror asked. "A terrifying thing has awakened here," Fengwu said. "Terrifying thing? Xiao Wu, did you see something again? Quickly tell us." Tingfeng couldn't wait to ask. The others also looked at Fengwu. After what had happened in the small town, everyone realized that Fengwu was not a simple girl. Naturally, they took her words seriously. Wasn't Fengwu the one who had first discovered that something was wrong with Princess Nana? It could be said that in the Demon Soul incident, the one who played the most important role was Fengwu. If it wasn't for Fengwu's abilities, more people would have died. Fengwu shook her head. "I didn't see anything, but I heard something." Fengwu pursed her lips and didn't say anything else. "What did you hear? Can Xiao Wu tell us?" Tingyu moved over to the seat next to Fengwu and sat down. "A powerful fellow has awakened in the valley. Many people will die." Fengwu turned to look at Tingyu, who was acting cute, and said, "Can you be more specific? What exactly is it that has awakened?" Ruglaz asked. "I don't know. They don't know either. They only know that the thing always wakes up once in a while. Every time it wakes up, many people will die." Fengwu naturally heard the news from the nearby plants, although the plants here were more or less demonized. However, even if they were demonized plants, they could still communicate with Fengwu. Fengwu didn't feel any pressure at all if she wanted to understand what they were saying. Mingxi and Skycliff looked at each other. They both felt that something big was about to happen. They were afraid that what happened this time would only be more terrible than what had happened in the small town. Should we leave here? Pei Qing still had a lot of trust in Fengwu's abilities. After knowing that something big was about to happen, the first thing that came to mind was to leave here first. No, we can't leave. Didn't we all agree to explore the ancient tomb together? Eve was the first to object. What do the others think? Mingxi smiled very gently. There seemed to be a strange light in his eyes, making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. There were only 3 people who wanted to leave the most. They were Pei Qing, Tingfeng, and Tingyu. The others didn't want to leave. Zicheng naturally couldn't bear to part with the tomb of the gods that was about to be in his hands. Irene saw that Zicheng didn't say that he wanted to leave, so she naturally couldn't take the initiative to leave. Eve had always followed Zicheng's footsteps. If Zicheng didn't leave, it would be strange if she left. As for Rika, she had always been a person of few words in this temporary team. She also prioritized everyone's opinions. In the end, because the minority followed the majority, the final result was that everyone naturally stayed here to train together. Originally, Elena wanted to let Fengwu and the other juniors leave. After seeing that none of them wanted to leave, she didn't say anything more. Moreover, Elena didn't dare to confirm how powerful the powerful guy Fengwu mentioned was. Their team was made up of the top experts in the Holy Court. Moreover, there was a successor of the 4 God Seals. How could they possibly be afraid of something that they hadn't even met yet? Thinking of this, she also felt much more at ease. The few of them chatted for a while. Seeing that they couldn't get any more useful information from Fengwu, the rest of the team returned to their tents to sleep, except for those who were on night watch. In the early morning in the valley, there were no sounds of any animals. Even the chirping of birds could only be heard in the 2-realm battlefield. Outside the valley, sunlight shone on the ground, covering the earth with a layer of golden gauze. Inside the valley, because the trees were too tall and the leaves were lush, very little sunlight could penetrate from outside. Chapter 131. Perhaps it was because the valley last night gave people an uneasy feeling, which made many people unable to sleep very well. Early in the morning, everyone had already woken up. They tidied up the things they needed to set up camp and extinguish the bonfire. Zicheng took out the metal piece and studied the map with Mingxi and the others. After confirming the path, they set off again. In the dark forest, only the footsteps of a few people could be heard. There were no sounds of animals, birds, or insects. This kind of silence made them feel uneasy. For some reason, the valley was especially peaceful today. Even the mutated demonic plants that would occasionally attack them did not appear. And the legendary undead army was nowhere to be seen. In such a peaceful valley they walked for a few hours. Apart from their conversation, they did not hear any other sounds. Is there something wrong? Isn't the 2-realm battlefield a legendary dangerous place? How can it be so peaceful and peaceful? Why does this feel wrong? Tingyu puffed up her cheeks and purposely stomped on the ground. That way, they could at least hear some noise. Everyone agreed with Tingyu's words. Wasn't that so? Everyone nodded secretly. This was really too peaceful. If they did not know that this was a famous dangerous place in the entire continent, no one would be able to associate such a peaceful place with the 2-realm battlefield. The calmer it is now, the more dangerous it will be in the future. Everyone be careful. Don't be careless. Mingxi frowned secretly, the uneasiness in his heart growing. As they did not encounter any obstacles along the way, they advanced smoothly in the direction of the divine mausoleum. They did not expect to hear the sounds of fighting as they walked. It was very normal to see people fighting in the 2-realm battlefield. There were many reasons why people would fight. Some were for benefits, some were for self-protection, and some were unlucky enough to meet their enemies in the 2-realm battlefield. In short, in this place, if you saw people fighting together, don't take it too seriously. Just stay far away and don't let the fire burn you. It was not the first time that Mingxi and the others had come to a dangerous place to train, so they immediately made the choice to take a detour. Killing and robbing happened every day in the two-realm battlefield. It was impossible to do anything about it even if they wanted to. Moreover, Mingxi and the others were not so saintly. They would care about the small town's matters because the victims were all ordinary people. Moreover, the perpetrator was not an ordinary person, but the demon spirit of an ancient demon. And in the two-realm battlefield, ordinary people did not exist. Ordinary people could not enter the two-realm battlefield unless they wanted to commit suicide. Those who came here were all here to seek treasures. Since they were here to seek treasures, they would definitely be prepared to die an unnatural death at any time. If they wanted to obtain treasures, they would naturally have to take a certain amount of risk. No one was obligated to help them. Mingxi and the others made the correct decision in an instant. Unfortunately, just as they were about to take a detour, they had not taken a few steps when 7 people rushed out from nearby. Among the 7 people, there were 2 women and 5 men. The 2 women were very beautiful. Although they looked very wretched, there were no injuries on their bodies. As for the 5 men, there were wounds of different sizes on their bodies. It was obvious that they had just gone through a life and death struggle. "You've come. Come and help us." Among the 2 women, a woman in blue clothes' eyes lit up when she saw Fengwu and the others. She immediately ran towards Mingxi and the others. They were planning to use them as scapegoats. At this time, even if they said that they did not know that woman and the others, no one would believe them. Mingxi and the others secretly frowned. They did not expect to encounter such a situation. Behind the 7 people was a group of mercenaries. This group had a total of more than 30 people. Magicians made up a small part of the group, about 10 people. The remaining 20 or so people were all swordmasters. These swordmasters were all wearing the same swordmaster uniform. The 30 or so people all wore the same badge. These 30 or so people all looked murderous. Moreover, these people did not look like they were to be trifled with. Their strength was not low. The 7 people who were being chased rushed towards Fengwu and the others. It seemed that they were determined to drag all of them down with them. Unfortunately, their wishful thinking was destined to fail. Skycliff coldly pulled out his long sword and pointed the tip of the sword at the 7 people who were rushing over. He circulated his ice dochi to the sword. He did not use any sword moves. He just casually waved his hand, and it made people feel an endless chill. It was as if they were about to be frozen. As Skycliff waved his sword, the 7 people simultaneously felt that they could not lift their feet. When they looked down, their feet were actually frozen at the same time. "What are you doing? Let us go." The expressions of the 7 people who were in a hurry to escape changed greatly. Especially the lady in blue. She did not expect that she would drag a group of people down with her just to buy some time for them. She did not expect that she would drag a group of people who were not to be trifled with. Any one of them could freeze all 7 of them at the same time with a casual swing of the sword. If they still thought that the other party was a soft persimmon that they could pinch at will with such strength, then they were too retarded. "Friends, thank you for your help." A middle-aged swordmaster walked out from the group of mercenaries who were chasing them and nodded to Mingxi and the others. Looking at the other party's expression, it was obvious that he did not believe the words of the 7 people. That was right. Those who could survive in the two-realm battlefield were not idiots. That lady in blue could think of dragging people down with her. Could others not see through her intentions? No need to be polite. They overestimated themselves. Skycliff looked coldly at the 30 mercenaries, put away his longsword, and turned to walk back to the group. Skycliff's behavior was very rude. Some people in the mercenary group immediately glared angrily at Skycliff, but no one spoke up to denounce him. As expected, those who could survive in the two-realm battlefield were not idiots. Casually making enemies without understanding the strength of others was the rhythm of wanting to die. "I am the captain of the 3rd small team of the Inferno mercenary group, Cohen. May I know who you are, my friends?" Cohen was not angered by Skycliff's attitude. Instead, he laughed very straightforwardly. "We are merely students of the Notre Dame du Starlight who have come out for training. Our names are not worth mentioning," Mingxi said with a faint smile. Mingxi was the most beautiful among all of them. His beauty was like the gentle moonlight. That faint smile was like a ray of moonlight that suddenly appeared in the darkness, shining into the hearts of others. This person was too good-looking. Cohen sighed inwardly. Compared to this person's looks, their group was like a group of butchers who could not be seen in public. Cohen did not suspect anything when he heard that they were students of the Notre Dame du Starlight who had come out for training. After being a mercenary for so many years, he still had this bit of discernment. Chapter 132. Let us go. Do you know who we are? We're from the Italy family. If you dare to hurt us, the Italy family will never let you off. Beside the blue-clothed woman, a green-clothed woman was shouting crazily. Mingshi wasn't the least bit interested in why they were fighting with these 7 people. He said his goodbyes and led his people to leave. Wait a moment, students. Something big might happen in the two-realm battlefield. If you're only here to train, it's better to leave quickly. Of course, Mingshi team wasn't the only one who noticed the abnormality in the valley. The other experienced people also noticed it. Letting Mingshi and the others leave at this time was indeed out of goodwill. He didn't want to see such a young group of students with a bright future get into trouble in the two-realm battlefield. Thank you for your concern, but we'll be careful. Mingshi's gaze became even more sincere because Cohen sincerely wanted to remind them. Although they had already noticed that something was wrong with the valley, they still had to accept his kindness. Seeing that Mingshi had taken his advice, Cohen didn't care whether they planned to leave or stay. After all, they were just strangers who had met by chance. He couldn't care too much about Mingshi and the others. It was already good enough that he was reminded. After Mingshi and the others took a detour and left, they didn't care about what would happen to the 2 teams. Before night fell, the group found a good place to set up camp and cook. Unlike Fengwu and the others who only had the habit of carrying dry rations, Mingshi team's people went out to train every year. They were already used to carrying all kinds of spices and ingredients with them. This way, when they didn't want to eat dry rations, they could still make something to eat. We'll help too. Zicheng took the pot from Elena's hands and helped her set it up. Eve helped Elena wash the vegetables. The water used to wash the vegetables was conjured by Zicheng using water magic. On the other hand, Irene was holding a kitchen knife and peeling potatoes. Fortunately, potatoes were very popular even in this world. Moreover, the potatoes in this world were very big, several times bigger than the potatoes on Earth. Fengwu, come help me cut the vegetables. Elena saw Fengwu standing there in confusion. She didn't seem to know what to do. Her heart softened. She handed the kitchen knife to Fengwu and asked her to help cut the vegetables. Fengwu took the kitchen knife, and her eyes lit up. This was the first time that someone had given her a job related to the kitchen. The Fengwu girl was a little excited. Ajur had just finished setting up the tent for the night with the other boys. When he turned around, he saw Fengwu cutting vegetables. She was cutting vegetables. This should be fine, right? As long as I don't let Fengwu cook, there should be no problem, right? Ajur was a little uncertain. He knew that Fengwu's cooking was simply dark cuisine. He remembered that he didn't know any better, and asked Fengwu to cook once. In the end, he fainted for a full 20 minutes after taking a bite. 20 minutes. If someone wanted to harm him, 20 minutes was enough for him to die several times over. Moreover, after he woke up, he couldn't eat for 3 days. He vomited whenever he ate. In just 3 days, he lost 5 pounds. That was an unbearable past. It was too sad to think about it. It was better not to think about it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to eat dinner. When Ajur thought about this dark history, his stomach started to churn. No, he definitely couldn't let Xiaowu cook dinner. It was too dangerous. This was the two-realm battlefield. If he really fainted in a place like this, he didn't think that he would have any chance of waking up. Any undead or reptile would be able to kill him instantly. Xiaowu, are you cooking? Ajur carefully moved closer, his voice carrying a hint of caution. Eve didn't want Fengwu to falsely claim Zicheng's credit, so she immediately said loudly, Little Cheng is the one cooking today. Little Cheng's culinary skills are very good. Many of the popular delicacies out there are from Little Cheng's hands. Is that so? Then you guys cook well. I won't disturb you. So it wasn't Xiaowu who was cooking. Ajur heaved a huge sigh of relief. His entire body relaxed. He turned and waved at Fengwu, then ran into the forest to pick up branches. Fengwu, what is he doing here? The aroma of dinner wafted out from the pot from time to time. Zicheng had made a pot of potato and beef stew. It was very fragrant. Ruglas and Arguros both praised Zicheng's culinary skills. Junior Zicheng's hands are really too skillful. She can actually make such delicious food. If only Elena's culinary skills were half as good as Zicheng's, then we wouldn't have to worry about not having a good meal when we travel. Ruglas sighed happily as he ate the beef in his bowl. Arguros discreetly sat further away. This idiot. So you're saying that Junior Ruglas is very dissatisfied with my culinary skills. The last word was slightly dragged out, causing all the hairs on Rugla's body to stand up. Only then did he realize how big of a mistake he had made. He actually dared to say that Elena's culinary skills were not good in front of her. Wasn't that a sign of wanting to die? Big sister Elena, I was wrong. I was confused and said the wrong thing. Can you be magnanimous and pretend you didn't hear it? Ruglas was like a little wife who was being abused. He hugged his bowl with tears in his eyes. The scene was too beautiful, and everyone expressed that they didn't want to see it. No. Can. Elena gently put down her bowl and walked to Rugras' side in an extremely ladylike manner. Her snow-white little hand took away the bowl that was tightly held in his hand and conveniently put it aside. After that, she lifted Rugras up as if he was a chick. Save me. I won't dare to talk nonsense anymore. Ruglas cried out miserably. It was a pity that the companions beside him didn't have any love for their companions. No one extended a helping hand to him. Because Ruglas was looking for trouble, Elena pulled him to the side to teach him a lesson. The others either ate or watched the show. Arguros was still waving a little handkerchief that he had gotten from who knows where, lightly waving it there. Is Senior Ruglas all right? Zicheng looked worriedly at the two people who had disappeared into the bushes. Don't worry about them. Don't worry, they will definitely leave him alive. Arguros put away the little handkerchief and said without worry. All right, Zicheng took back his worries. It seemed like he was thinking too much. A large pot of stewed beef with potato was finished just like that. The second night in the two-realm battlefield was still so peaceful. It was so peaceful that it was frightening. The news of the divine tomb appearing in the two-realm battlefield spread like wildfire. No one knew where this news came from. When everyone discovered it, almost everyone who was still training in the two-realm battlefield already knew about it. Chapter 133. When Fengwu and the others arrived at the location marked on the map, they were surprised to find that a large group of people had appeared at the entrance of the Tomb of the Gods. This sudden change made Irene and Zicheng completely dumbfounded. Zicheng didn't understand why so many people would appear at this place, while Irene couldn't figure out how the plot had changed. In the original movie, the Tomb of the Gods was discovered by a clan and fought with the female lead, Zicheng. In the end, the female lead, Zicheng, successfully obtained the divine artifact. No one else discovered the location of the Tomb of the Gods. But now what was going on? Why did so many people know about it? Mingxi and the others didn't feel anything because they didn't know if anyone else knew about the location of the Tomb of the Gods. Most importantly, they didn't know that it was a Tomb of the Gods. Zicheng had always held back and didn't reveal everything. The two-realm battlefield was very, very big. Many people came here to train. Those who could survive here for a long time were all experts. These experts all had the same confidence in their own strength. At the same time, they wouldn't underestimate anyone who appeared in the two-realm battlefield. Because the news of the Tomb of the Gods appearing had suddenly spread, people gathered here from time to time. The entrance of the Tomb of the Gods was already surrounded by forces of all sizes. It was impossible for anyone to enter the Tomb of the Gods without alerting others. Because there were simply too many people who rushed to the entrance of the Tomb of the Gods and wanted to enter to search for treasures, Mingxi and the others who suddenly appeared naturally didn't attract too much attention. Mingxi and the others could tell that the situation wasn't right. The group didn't do anything that would attract attention. They quietly found a place and stood there. They were a little confused about the current situation. Some people were born with bodies of light. Even if they stood there and didn't say anything, They would definitely attract attention. Most of Mingxi's group had this potential. There was the gentle and beautiful Zicheng, the beautiful and generous Elena, the bright and cheerful Irene, and the black-haired and black-eyed Fengwu, who had a unique oriental charm. Even Eve and Rika were beautiful women. Among the men, Ajur had a head of fiery red hair, and was surrounded by waves of fire elements. Skycliff's cold eyes with a faint murderous aura, Mingxi's perfect face that was as beautiful as the moon, and the gentle and natural aura that surrounded him. The three men with different temperaments naturally attracted the attention of many people. Many female adventurers focused their gazes on the three of them. As for the other men, they didn't have any distinguishing features. The women said that they didn't notice there were other men in the team. The men who didn't look were speechless. Hey, are you also here to look for treasures in the Tomb of God? Not far from Mingxi's group stood another group of people. There were both men and women in this group. They were obviously very interested in the people of the Mingxi team. After staring at them for a few minutes, a young man who looked a little slovenly finally came over. You too? Arguros, as the little diplomatic expert of the Mingxi team, naturally took the job of the ambassador of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But what the hell was the Tomb of God? Wasn't this an ordinary ancient tomb? Whether it was Ajur or Rugla's, they all looked at Zicheng secretly, wondering if she knew that this ancient tomb was actually the Tomb of God. Ajur became suspicious of Zicheng and made a decision in his heart. If they really entered the ancient tomb, they must be careful of the girl called Zicheng. That girl didn't look very honest. Although Rugla's and the others also had some doubts, they didn't immediately convict Zicheng. Maybe she really didn't know. And even if she knew, she was the one who found the information about the Tomb of God. It was reasonable for her to hide something. After all, the temptation of the Tomb of God was too great, and it was necessary to guard against people. Zicheng's impression in the hearts of these people changed a little because of this incident. Didn't you say it was an ancient tomb? Fengwu asked, puzzled. The Fengwu girl didn't mean anything else. She was just curious about this matter. Unfortunately, in the ears of some people, it wasn't the case. Zicheng bit her lip. Her expression was a little bad, and her eyes revealed a sense of uneasiness and grievance. I'm sorry, Xiaowu. I really didn't know that this was a tomb of God. I really thought it was an ancient tomb. Zicheng acted like an ignorant girl, and vividly portrayed the grievance of being misunderstood. If she didn't know the truth beforehand, Irene would have applauded her acting. What do you mean? Are you blaming Little Cheng? Little Cheng hasn't been here before. She didn't mean to lie to you. Eve, who had always been the most protective of Zicheng, naturally jumped out to make her presence known. Ladies, this is indeed a tomb of God. However, the news of this tomb of God suddenly spread yesterday. No one knows where it came from. In any case, this news seemed to have spread throughout the entire two-realm battlefield overnight. Even the exact location of the tomb of God was spread. We came here to verify it. That young man didn't seem to notice the undercurrent between the girls as he spoke with a calm expression. So it's like that. We also heard that an ancient tomb had appeared nearby, so we wanted to try our luck. We didn't expect that this wasn't an ancient tomb, but a tomb of God. Arguros timely expressed her surprise at this matter. Then the person who passed the news to you must have misheard. The appearance of the Tomb of God is a grand occasion for the entire continent. Who knows how many experts are rushing here? Right now, several large mercenary groups have already surrounded the entrance of the Tomb of God. Unless the key to open the Tomb of God is gathered, no one can enter. There's a key to open the Tomb of God? Why hadn't they heard of this before? Of course there's a key. This is a Tomb of God. If you don't have some tricks up your sleeve, not just anyone can enter. The young man said. Then who has the key? Pei Qing couldn't help but ask. The young man turned to look at Pei Qing. It should be with the Raging Inferno Mercenary Group. That's what the rumors say outside. Raging Inferno Mercenary Group. This name was too familiar. Didn't they meet them yesterday? Arguros thought about how the young man in front of her said that the news of the Tomb of God had suddenly spread yesterday, and that they had met the Raging Inferno Mercenary Group yesterday to capture those 7 people. Could it be that there was some kind of relationship between the two? Chapter 134. Just yesterday, a young mercenary from the Vicious Flames mercenary group found a small piece of iron on a corpse that had been dead for many years. This incident happened to be seen by 7 youths from the Italy family who were passing by. The 7 of them joined forces to snatch the small iron plate from the hands of the young mercenary. The other 7 youths did not know what the small iron plate was at first. They only saw the young mercenary find it on the corpse. In the spirit of not letting go of any good things, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. The 7 youths then took action to snatch the item from the young mercenary. Originally, they wanted to kill him to silence him. After all, the Vicious Flames mercenary group was a large mercenary group with more than 300 people. It was not an unknown small force. Unfortunately, just as they were about to silence them, the people of the Blazing Fire mercenary group appeared. How could their own mercenary group be bullied? Naturally, the leader of the 3rd squad, Cohen, immediately led the mercenaries who were out for training to chase after them. On the way, they happened to meet Feng Wu and the others, and as a result, they dug their own graves. In fact, in the original work, Feng Wu and the others did not appear in that place. Because the 7 youths met the large team of the Italy family in time, naturally they were not caught by the Vicious Flames mercenary group. Unfortunately, in this life, because of Feng Wu and the others, the original script was changed. The small iron plate that should have fallen into the hands of the Italy family was snatched away by the Vicious Flames mercenary group. After the small iron plate was snatched away, the trajectory of history naturally changed. After getting the iron plate, the Italy family, who should have come to explore the tomb of the god of sin alone, lost the key to enter the tomb of the god of sin. When the Raging Inferno mercenary group first snatched back the small piece of iron, they didn't know the use of the small piece of iron at all. If they knew, they would definitely not care about the Italy family and would just beat them up and let them go. Most likely, they would have already killed them. If they killed them, the matter of the tomb of the god of sin would naturally not spread to the outside world. That's right, the ones who spread the news about the divine tomb were the members of the Italy family. After the 7 youths met the elders of their family, they naturally told them about how the Raging Flames mercenary group had snatched the key to the divine tomb that belonged to their family. The people of the Adori family were naturally angry. Since they couldn't get it, they couldn't let the people of the Raging Flames mercenary group monopolize it. Therefore, they spread the news of the tomb of the god of sin's appearance without benefiting themselves. Because during their escape, one of them had stained the metal plate with his blood. Therefore, they had already looked through the map and successfully found the location marked on the map. In order to not let the Vicious Flames mercenary group pass by, and in order to have a fair share of the loot, they did not hesitate to stab the Vicious Flames mercenary group in the back. By the time that small mercenary from the Vicious Fire mercenary group was bleeding from his wound, causing the small piece of metal to reveal its true appearance, it was already too late to salvage the situation. Those 7 people had already been released, and had successfully joined up with his family's main forces. When the Vicious Flames mercenary group sharpened their swords and prepared to go to the tomb of the god of sin's treasure hunt, the news of the tomb of the god of sin's appearance had already spread throughout the entire 2-realm battlefield. This was really a sad story. Now, Feng Wu and the others naturally didn't know about this inside story. Now, Arguros was using his eloquence to get more inside information from the young man who had taken the initiative to talk to him. The news that the key is in the hands of the Vicious Flames mercenary group was also spread out together with the news of the tomb of the god of sin. Elena felt that she smelled the scent of a conspiracy. That's right, it was spread out together. We were originally guessing whether the Vicious Flames mercenary group had offended someone, so there was such a rumor. They wanted us adventurers who wanted to hunt for treasure to help them go against the Vicious Flames mercenary group. But after later observation, we found that the key might really be in the hands of the Vicious Flames mercenary group. The person who spread the news might not be lying. After this news was confirmed, many large mercenary groups had already gotten in touch with the Vicious Flames mercenary group. The situation of several large mercenary groups surrounding the entrance of the tomb of the god of sin was the result of their discussion. Thank you for telling us so much, brother. If it weren't for you, we still wouldn't have understood the situation. Arguros said with a smile. You don't have to be so polite. This news is known to everyone now. It's not a secret at all. The young man waved his hand and said with an indifferent expression. Ajur, are we still going in? Fengwu pulled on Ajur's clothes and asked with uncertainty. Don't you want to go? Ajur lowered his head and looked at the uneasy girl. Not really. It's just that the tomb of the god of sin is very dangerous. Fengwu had read many books and naturally knew what kind of place the tomb of the god of sin was. It was the tomb that the god of sin built for himself with his last breath before he died. There were countless benefits in the tomb of the god of sin, and naturally, there were endless dangers. It was written in the book that every time the tomb of the god of sin was opened, countless mages and swordmasters would fall inside. Fengwu looked at Mingxi with some uneasiness and pursed her lips. Mingxi felt Fengwu's gaze and looked back at her, nodding gently at her. You don't have to go in if you're afraid of death. No one asked you to go with us. The person Eve hated the most was naturally Fengwu. Before she entered the Notre Dame du Starlight, Eve had a one-sided feud with Fengwu. After that, the feud between the two deepened to the point that it was irreconcilable. In addition, Fengwu had just suspected her good friend Zicheng, so her anger towards Fengwu was off the charts. Shut up if you don't want to die. Ajur looked at her with disdain, not bothering to hide the viciousness in his eyes. You're the heir of the 4 god seals. How can you threaten a girl so easily? Eve said unhappily. Fortunately, Ajur had already set up a soundproof barrier when Eve spoke. If he hadn't acted quickly, his identity would have been known to everyone. Eve, how can you talk about Ajur's identity in a place like this? Irene naturally jumped out at this time to improve Ajur's favorability. I didn't say anything wrong. It's not like his identity is shameful. Why can't I say it? Eve glanced at Irene indifferently. Eve disliked Aaron's meddling in other people's business. Yeah, could it be that Ajur is afraid that after his identity as the heir of the 4 god seals is exposed, people will know that he casually used the power of the god seals to make things difficult for girls? Rika suddenly spoke at this time. Rika had always held a grudge against Ajur for using illusions to make her lose face. Now that Ajur and Eve were going against each other, she naturally wanted to help Eve make Ajur suffer. Chapter 135. When Zicheng saw that the 2 people beside him had joined forces to make things difficult for Ajur, he became a little anxious. Each of the successors of the 4 god seals would be a peerless expert in the future. To be honest, Zicheng did not want to offend the successors of the 4 god seals. He wanted to open his mouth to mediate the conflict between the 2 sides, but unfortunately, Ajur did not want to wait for others to mediate. Haven't you been taught a lesson enough? Do you want to do it again? Ajur's voice seemed to come from hell, full of malice. Rika was so angry that her breasts were constantly heaving up and down. Unfortunately, none of the men present were in the mood to enjoy this beautiful scene. Rika never dreamed that in front of so many people, Ajur would dare to threaten her like this. However, after suffering a loss in Ajur's hands, she deeply understood how crazy this man in front of her could be. She believed that he would definitely do something like running around naked in front of so many people. Don't quarrel anymore. Rika, Eve, the situation is already chaotic enough. We can't have internal strife. Zicheng pulled one in each hand and took the 2 girls away from Ajur's side. He made up his mind to keep an eye on them, and not let them continue to mess around like this. When the 2 girls were pulled away, Elena and Ruglas, who were planning to mediate, naturally did not have the opportunity to appear. After Arguros and the young man who took the initiative to talk to them, they finally had a new understanding of the situation in the tomb of the god of sin. Look, the people of the Italy family have arrived. I didn't think that even the people of the Italy family would also come. Now the chances of getting the artifact are even smaller. Come on, you still want the artifact? I only want to find some magic books or spirit fruits in the tomb of the god of sin, and I will be satisfied. So many people have come, it seems that more people will come later. I don't know what the people of the Vicious Flames mercenary group are thinking. Why haven't they opened the tomb of the god of sin? When more people come, the situation will only become more chaotic. Yeah. Why haven't they opened the tomb of the gods yet? The surrounding people were discussing animatedly. The tomb of the god of sin had not been opened for a long time, and they saw that there were constantly big forces coming over to take a share of the loot. They were so flustered that they felt as if they were being scratched by cats. In the midst of everyone's discussion, the people of the Adori family walked over in an imposing manner. The middle-aged man walking at the front was wearing a black magic robe. The magic elements around his body were very active. One could feel the magic aura coming from his body, making people not dare to underestimate his strength. Walking behind the middle-aged man were a few people who were about the same age as him. Some of them were holding magic staffs, while others were holding long swords. Every single one of them was emitting a powerful aura. About 30 people walked directly into the crowd. Although there weren't many people from the Italy family, no one dared to underestimate the strength of this family. After all, they were a famous family in the Soya Empire. That was a family that had the protection of a sorcerer. In the Soya Empire, there were not many people who dared to offend the Adori family. Big brother, look, isn't that the group of people who stopped us yesterday and caused us to be caught by the Inferno mercenary group? The girl who spoke was wearing a blue tulle dress. She was holding a magic staff in her hand. She was very beautiful. It's really them, Big Brother Abel. We can't let them go. If we don't kill those people, I won't be able to get rid of this anger in my heart. A girl in pink looked at Fengwu and the others. Her beautiful big eyes were full of hatred. The hatred in her eyes was almost tangible. If looks could kill, Fengwu and the others would have been killed a few times already. Angela, Bonnie, don't worry. We will definitely kill those guys. Abel looked at the direction of Ming-Shi and the others viciously, and walked towards the 7th elder, who was walking in front. This 7th elder was one of the 12 elders of the Adori family. He was very strong. This time, he was responsible for leading some of the family's younger generation with potential to gain experience. He didn't expect to encounter such a big event in the tomb of the God of God in this place. The 7th elder hated the Inferno mercenary group who robbed the key to the tomb of the God of God from the Adori family. After Abel told him that the key was taken away by the Inferno mercenary group because someone stopped them, the 7th elder naturally wouldn't let go of those who stopped the younger generation of the Adori family and helped the Inferno mercenary group to get the key. Dealing with the Inferno mercenary group may take a long time, but dealing with a few young adventurers, the 7th elder had no pressure at all. As soon as Abel pointed out that the group of people was nearby, the 7th elder immediately decided to take care of that group of people. The people of the Adori family were not people that could be bullied by just any cat or dog. Ming-Shi and the others sensitively felt that there was a malicious gaze falling on them. When they looked back, they saw a group of people who they didn't know. Aren't those young people the guys who wanted to drag us into the water yesterday? It was Irene who found the young people standing at the back. Otherwise, they didn't know when they would realize when they got into trouble. It's really them. I think I heard them say that they are from the Adori family. Arguros said after thinking for a while. It seems that they want to kill us. Skycliff said coldly. After entering the tomb of the God of God, everyone must be careful. I suspect that they will do something to us in the tomb of the God of God. Ming-Shi frowned slightly. Obviously, he didn't expect that an accident would cause such a big trouble. They must have thought so. Tingfeng and Tingyu said in unison. Abel originally wanted the 7th elder to take them immediately and kill those people here. Unfortunately, the 7th elder didn't want to kill the students of the Notre Dame du Starlight in front of everyone. The Notre Dame du Starlight was not a small force on the continent. Although it was only a school, everyone knew that the relationship between the Notre Dame du Starlight and the Star Hall had always been very good. Moreover, the Dean of the Notre Dame du Starlight and the Lord of the Star Hall had an extraordinary status. On this continent, they were like gods. The 7th elder didn't want their Adori family to provoke a big force like the Notre Dame du Starlight. Although they didn't want to provoke the people of the Notre Dame du Starlight, they had to avenge the loss of the key to the tomb of the God of God. The 7th elder decided that after entering the tomb of the God of God, they would catch Ming-Shi and the others in one fell swoop. By that time, even the Notre Dame du Starlight wouldn't know that it was them. The 7th elder's idea was very good. But would it go so smoothly? Why do they want to kill us? Fengwu didn't quite understand. They didn't know those people, so why would they want to kill them? Chapter 136. Some people can't be reasoned with. They don't need a reason to kill. If you meet such lunatics in the future, don't be polite to them. Ajur took this opportunity to educate the naive Fengwu. Fengwu nodded. She understood that those who wanted to kill for no reason were lunatics. Mingxi secretly approved of Ajur's education of Fengwu. Although they had only known each other for a few days, Mingxi had already seen that this girl was too naive. If she wasn't properly educated, she might be deceived by bad people in the future. Isn't this Elder Farley? Are you the one leading the team this time? A middle-aged man wearing a swordsman's uniform and the badge of a mercenary group had a subtle smile on his face as he looked at the group of people from the Italy family. The seventh elder heard the voice and looked at the newcomer with a cold glint in his eyes. Captain Ando has also come. You really came quickly. I heard that the news of the Divine Tomb's appearance spread so quickly because of Elder Farley's contribution. Our mercenary groups should properly thank Elder Farley. Ando, the captain of the 4th squad of the werewolf mercenaries, smiled with incomparable sincerity. You don't have to thank me. This elder just doesn't want the Raging Inferno mercenary group to monopolize the Divine Tomb. This Divine Tomb belongs to our entire continent. How can we let the Raging Inferno mercenary group monopolize it? The 7th elder Farley was not someone easy to deal with. He was clearly being mocked by others, yet he could still smile so naturally. Ando secretly sneered. What a nice way to put it. Who doesn't know that you want to take advantage of the chaos? You want to use our forces to force the Raging Inferno mercenary group to open the Divine Tomb and let us explore together. Then your Italy family can take advantage of the chaos, right? Humph. If it wasn't for our Italy family, how could your mercenary groups know about the existence of the Divine Tomb? Ungrateful things. The two old foxes were clearly cursing each other to death in their hearts, but they didn't show any dissatisfaction on their faces. Should they say that they were indeed worthy of being the upper echelons of a large force? Farley, you're here too. How come only you came out of the 12 elders of the Adori family? Can you protect the little ones behind you by yourself? At this time, another person walked over. This person's voice carried a sinister tone, and he had heavy dark circles under his eyes. He held a long magic staff in his hand, and the dense aura of mana pulsing around him made it clear that this person was not someone to be trifled with. There's no need for you to worry, Shiat. You should worry about your Lienya family. Farley snorted coldly and led his clansmen to the side to wait for the god tomb to open. Our Lienya clan has produced many capable people. Your Italy clan doesn't seem to have produced any capable talents in recent years. Shiat sneered with a mocking expression. The group of juniors standing behind Fairly glared at Shiat, but Shiat just snorted in disdain. This snort, which contained mana fluctuations, immediately turned into mana fluctuations that attacked the juniors of the Adori family. The juniors of the Adori family obviously didn't realize that they were about to be plotted against. How could a magic expert be discovered by a few insignificant juniors when he made a move? Attacking the juniors, Shiat, you're still so shameless. Farley stabbed his magic staff into the ground, and the invisible attack was immediately eliminated. Humph. Shiat snorted coldly, and led the people of the Lienya family away without looking back. Those who could be here weren't idiots. Their goal was the treasures in the god tomb, so they didn't want to waste their fighting strength at the entrance. The elders of the other families and the mercenaries didn't say anything. At this time, the most important thing was to preserve their strength. They didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Fortunately, Farley and the others only said a few words, and then found a place to wait. There was no more communication. After half an hour, more and more people came to the entrance of the legendary tomb of the god of sin. Finally, the people of the Inferno mercenary group appeared. As soon as the members of the Inferno mercenary group appeared, they were immediately welcomed by everyone. At this time, everyone wanted to strive to enter the god tomb as soon as possible. Captain Cohen, it's been a long time since we last saw each other. We'll have to trouble Captain Cohen to explore the god tomb. Yes, yes, Captain Cohen was able to obtain the key to the God tomb. His luck is really heaven-defying. We are really envious. Brother Cohen, after entering the God tomb, don't forget to take care of our Wild Lion mercenary group. We aren't as familiar with the terrain of the God tomb as Brother Cohen. The captains of these large mercenary groups and the elders of the major families all gathered around in an instant. They were all talking to each other. In short, they express one thing. It was almost time to open the tomb of the God of Sin. And if there was a map of the tomb of the God of Sin, they should share it. When Cohen heard this, he wanted to send these guys flying with a kick. What the hell was this? The Inferno mercenary group was very happy to obtain the opportunity to enter the God tomb. But he was only responsible for bringing a few new mercenaries to gain experience. There were only a few experts in the group. What was the point of exploring the God tomb at this time? Could they really come out after entering? Cohen was very doubtful of this, but he had no choice but to enter. Now that everyone knew that the key to the God tomb was in Cohen's hands, if he didn't open the God tomb, he was sure that these people who were waiting to enter the God tomb to search for treasures would be inhumane and directly kill him to snatch the key. Although he had already sent one of his fastest men to the headquarters to inform the guild leader still needed some time to travel. He could only hope that the guild leader would be able to arrive before they left the Tomb of the Gods. Like Cohen, there were many people who had sent people back to inform the forces behind them. Not many of the true experts of the major forces had come here. If they wanted to obtain the benefits of the God tomb, they definitely wouldn't be enough. Reinforcements from the rear were necessary. Let's quickly go to the other side. Zicheng's eyes flashed when he saw Cohen appear. Ah, why? Arguros asked, puzzled. The others also looked at Zicheng with puzzled eyes. While everyone was gathered in front of the legendary entrance to the God tomb, no one noticed that a small group of people was quietly leaving from the other side. After avoiding most of the people, Zicheng led Mingxi and the others to a very secluded place. There were only some mutated plants around. There were many experts in their group, so dealing with one or two mutated plants was naturally not a problem. This is the other entrance? Irene pointed at a smooth stone wall and asked. Chapter 137. That's right, this is the place. I obtained 2 maps from the metal piece, and both maps recorded 2 different entrances. That entrance is relatively safe, but this entrance is a random teleportation entrance. If we enter from here, we will be randomly teleported to a certain place. It's possible that we will be teleported to a dangerous place. Originally, I didn't want to take this path, but there are too many people crowding around the other entrance. Moreover, the people from the Adori family obviously have ill intentions towards us. It's too dangerous to take the same path as them, so I thought that we might as well take this path and try it. Zicheng indeed didn't want to take this path at first. She wanted to take the safer path, but it was a pity that there were too many people taking the safe path. If they found something good and started fighting, with so many people fighting together, it would be very disadvantageous for them since they had too few people on their side. In that case, it would be better to take the more random path and take a gamble. Junior Zicheng has a point. If we were to squeeze into the same path with so many people, even the safest path would become unsafe. It's better to try the other path. Elena had always had an adventurous temperament. She didn't care about random teleportation at all. Alright, we'll go in from this entrance. After entering, you guys must be extra careful. The Tomb of the God of Sin is a very dangerous place. As a senior, Mingxi naturally had to remind his juniors, as well as Tingfeng, Tingyu, and Peiqing whom he had just met not long ago. Although the 3 of them didn't have any relationship with them, they had been together for a long time, and could be considered friends. After being reminded, the few of them naturally nodded obediently. Fengwu looked at Mingxi obediently, her eyes sparkling. Mingxi ignored her fervent gaze. He was now used to being molested by Fengwu's gaze from time to time. Suddenly, there was a tremor between heaven and earth. Mingxi and the others immediately guessed that Cohen had opened another entrance to the Tomb of the God of Sin. Zicheng took out a small iron plate and pointed it at the smooth mountain wall. When the iron plate was pointed at the mountain wall, it suddenly emitted a white light. Then, on the originally smooth mountain wall, a black hole suddenly appeared. The hole was very dark and they could feel the powerful energy inside the black hole. Mingxi and the others exchanged careful glances, and then walked into the black hole one by one. After a while, Fengwu held her dizzy head and found herself surrounded by a large group of magical beasts. Yes, there was a large group of magical beasts around, and some of them were even the same kind of magical beast. Fengwu had seen this kind of magical beast in a book before. It was a four-winged magic goat, a high-level fire-type magical beast. Their mouth and body burned with raging flames all year round. Their forewings were also made of fire feathers. According to the novel, these fire feathers could all be used to attack their enemies. A high-level magical beast like the four-winged magic goat was not commonly seen under normal circumstances. Unless one went to a place where magical beasts lived together, there was probably a chance of encountering it. The place where high-level magical beasts lived was very dangerous, so dangerous that it was comparable to the few great danger zones. Fengwu looked around and found that other than her, there were no other humans around. Did they get separated? Fengwu blinked. She was not used to it. Fortunately, she grew up on Mount Yuehua since she was young, so she quickly adapted to the feeling of being alone. The high-level magical beasts, the four-winged magic goat, already knew that there was a human invading their territory. Originally, these magical beasts wanted to directly kill that blind human, but when they felt Fengwu's aura, these originally ferocious high-level magical beasts immediately changed their minds. This human's aura smells really good. I want to be friends with her. Me too, me too. The aura of this human feels really comfortable. Who is this human? Why don't I want to fight with her at all? Dozens of four-winged magic goat, big and small, old and young, all curiously looked at Fengwu. Those mature magical beasts still had a certain resistance to Fengwu's aura, so they didn't immediately rush over to ask for a hug. Those little magical beasts didn't have this kind of willpower. They wagged their tails and ran over to Fengwu's feet with their four short legs. The little guys gently bit Fengwu's skirt with their teeth, begging to be hugged and caressed. Fengwu narrowed her eyes and the corner of her mouth hooked up. Fengwu liked to get along with little animals the most. Although the animals in this world looked a little strange and had a strong lethality, it couldn't stop Fengwu from liking these little guys. Fengwu wasn't afraid of the flames on the little guys' bodies at all. She lowered her head and touched their backs, then played with their little wings. The little guys happily bleated. The mature magical beasts, who were originally worried that Fengwu would hurt the little guys, were completely relieved after seeing that Fengwu wasn't afraid of the flames on the little beasts' bodies. The flames on the fire-type magical beasts had spirituality. When they weren't attacking, as long as you had good intentions and didn't have any evil thoughts, the flames on the magical beasts' bodies wouldn't be able to hurt you. Instead, you would only taste the pain of being burned by the spiritual fire. Fengwu wasn't afraid of the flames on their bodies, which proved that Fengwu was a person with a pure mind and didn't have any evil thoughts. It was impossible for people with evil thoughts to not be burned. Even if the strength of the little beasts was still very low, it was impossible for the flames on their bodies to be completely ineffective against humans. Fengwu's friendliness to the little beasts, as well as the fact that she wasn't afraid of the spiritual fire on their bodies, quickly won the favor of the magical beasts. After discovering that Fengwu could actually understand their words, the magical beasts were even happier. They welcomed Fengwu into the cave where they lived and took out their favorite spiritual fruits to entertain Fengwu. Fengwu held a high-grade spiritual fruit that could strengthen one's body and ate it in small bites. She didn't think that this spiritual fruit was so precious to the outside world. To Fengwu, this was just a small gift from her new friends. Fengwu was eating the spiritual fruit here, but the others weren't so lucky. A Jur fell into a swamp and almost sank to death. Tingfeng and Tingyu were lucky enough to fall into a forest, but the forest was so big that they didn't know where they were at all. Peiqing fell into the nest of a flying magical beast. Fortunately, the flying magical beast wasn't at home, so Peiqing directly ran away. Eve and Elena fell together, and both of them fell into a pool. If it wasn't for Elena's quick reaction, the two of them would have become food for the magical beasts. Skycliff's ice attribute might be too strong, so he actually fell into an ice source, surrounded by ice and snow. Fortunately, he was a top master who had comprehended the ice sword intent, so he was very lucky to fall into a place surrounded by ice and snow. Chapter 138. Zicheng fell into a ruin, surrounded by collapsed buildings. There was no one around, so it was relatively safe. On the other hand, Aaron landed in a medicinal field. There were a lot of rare herbs that were hard to find in the outside world. Aaron's space absorbed a lot of these rare herbs. She was the luckiest among all of them. Rika, on the other hand, was lucky enough to fall together with Rugrass. When the two of them fell, they actually fell into a snake nest. After a bitter battle, they managed to escape. Arguros was a bit unlucky. He fell into a desert, and from time to time, scorpions would come out of the sand and chase after him. As for Mingxi, he directly appeared at the mouth of a volcano, and almost directly fell into the volcano and burned to death. His luck was relatively bad, because Mingxi's group was randomly teleported. Except for a few people who met together, most of them were scattered. In this mysterious divine tomb, each of them began to embark on their own path of treasure hunting. Fengwu enjoyed a feast of spirit fruits under the warm hospitality of the four-winged demonic goats. The four-winged demonic goats were worthy of being natives of the divine tomb. They naturally knew where the spirit fruits grew. Fengwu ate and took. She was very happy. Xiaowu, you have to be careful. This divine tomb is very dangerous. Although there is a god's inheritance here, there are also fatal dangers. Our four-winged demonic goats have lived here for generations, but there are still many places that even we don't dare to go. In short, this place is very dangerous. You have to be careful. You can't just wander around, okay? A mother of a little demonic goat lovingly looked at Fengwu and worriedly warned her again and again. Yes, you have to be careful. We sense that a lot of humans have entered here. Humans are very bad, Xiaowu. Don't easily trust others. Of course, Xiaowu is not bad. Xiaowu is a good person, a four-winged demonic goat girl who was about to reach adulthood said very cutely. The four-winged demonic goats liked Fengwu very much. They were very worried that Fengwu girl would lose her life in this place, so they told Fengwu all the safe places they knew. But this divine tomb was a small world created by the god's divine power. The place was really too big. Even if their clan lived here for generations, they didn't know much, at most the information about this grassland. Once they left this grassland, the four-winged demonic goat's eyes were also dark. They didn't know anything. Carrying the spirit fruits given to her by the kind magical beasts, and waving goodbye to the cute four-winged demonic goat clan, Fengwu embarked on her journey alone. When a Jur entered this divine tomb, he warned her not to be anxious if she accidentally got separated from everyone, and explore by herself first. When she met her companions, she had to carefully protect herself. Other than the members of their expert team and the seniors of the Mingxi team, she couldn't easily trust others, even if it was Zicheng and Irene. Fengwu didn't understand why she couldn't trust Zicheng and the others. Fortunately, Fengwu wasn't a curious person, so she didn't ask and just obediently listened. Walking alone on the grassland, the white clouds in the sky fluttered with the wind. The sun was very warm above her head, and from time to time, she could see some magical beasts passing by. Fengwu's body had a strong affinity. Even if it was a ferocious magical beast, as long as it was an intelligent creature, it definitely wouldn't have any malice towards Fengwu. Those with a bad temper would at most ignore her. In the direction of another entrance, the hundreds of people who entered the divine tomb were facing a difficult choice. Cohen, have you chosen which path to enter? A small captain of a large mercenary group walked in front of Cohen, wanting to inquire about some information. After the divine tomb opened, everyone entered the divine tomb. The space inside the divine tomb was extraordinarily large. As soon as they passed through the entrance, they entered a large hall. Aside from a few large doors, there was nothing else in the hall. Each of these doors was engraved with complicated patterns and looked very mysterious. Those who had not come out for the first time knew that behind each door, there must be a choice. If the choice was wrong, it was very likely that they wouldn't get anything and might even lose their lives. No one dared to be the first to choose which door to choose because the Inferno mercenary group was the first to get the key. Everyone wanted to know if the Inferno mercenary group had any inside information about these doors. How could Cohen not know why so many people were waiting here? After a wry smile he said, "Everyone, you don't have to wait. We really don't know which door to choose. When we first got the map of the Divine Tomb and the Iron Key, we really didn't find anything else." The members of the Raging Inferno mercenary group wanted to curse more than once. What the hell was going on? The key was obviously discovered by their mercenary group first. It was okay that it was almost taken away, but it was not easy for them to snatch it back and let the whole world know about it. Now, their group was being closely monitored by other forces, afraid that they were hiding something. What could they hide? If there was really an internal map of the Divine Tomb, would they be standing here and scratching their heads? Most of them believed Cohen's words. After all, this was the Tomb of the Gods. It was already good enough that they could find the key and the map to the outside. If they wanted to get the map to the inside as well, they would be dreaming. Generally speaking, in a divine tomb like this, there would definitely be some inheritance left. There would also be many checkpoints to test the talent and luck of the inheritor. If even the map of the Divine Tomb appeared, how could they choose the inheritor? It wasn't that whoever got the map would automatically get the inheritance of a god. It was too easy, so easy that it was unbelievable. Thinking about it this way, it was more believable that Cohen's team didn't get the map of the Divine Tomb. Of course, those who believed in Cohen were rational people. There were also those who just wanted to try their luck. They didn't care whether Cohen really had the map or not. They just wanted to try their luck. What if Cohen lied? Wouldn't it be a good opportunity to follow them? In short, those who believed in Cohen began to choose the door they wanted to enter. As for those who didn't believe in Cohen, they all stared at Cohen's group, waiting to see which path they chose. In short, after a long time, the first person to make a choice appeared at the other entrance. How is this possible? Why am I in the desert? After someone entered a random door, he found that he was directly teleported to the desert. For a moment, there were exclamations everywhere. Chapter 139. This is a grassland? It really deserves to be called the Tomb of the Gods. It can actually form its own space. On a vast and boundless grassland. Wow. What is this place? It's so cold. It's really killing me. On an ice field covered in ice and snow. Why is there water everywhere? Oh my God. Are we going out to sea? On an endless ocean. It's so hot. It's a volcano. Oh my God. Near the crater of the volcano. Behind each door was a different world. Which world one would end up in was entirely up to luck. After everyone had chosen to enter a door, a voice filled with boundless majesty rang out in the sky. This voice seemed to come from the ninth heaven, with supreme majesty and power passed into everyone's ears. Congratulations to you adventurers. First of all, congratulations to you for finding this place. This is the last place where I cave-in slept. I don't know how many tens of thousands of years I have been sleeping here. You are the first humans to enter this place. Tens of thousands of years ago, I was just an ordinary weak human like you. Later, after diligent practice, I finally broke through the void and successfully ascended to the divine realm, becoming an acquired god. I thought that after becoming a god, I would have eternal life. I didn't expect that the war between gods and devils would suddenly break out. Many of us gods fell here. I, Kaven, was obsessed with practicing magic all my life. In my life, I didn't accept a disciple, nor did I leave my inheritance. This god didn't want my inheritance to be severed. Before I died, I used the last of my strength to build this temple. Whoever can pass this god's test will become my ultimate inheritor. There's really an inheritance. I really didn't expect it. I just wanted to try my luck. The inheritance is useless to us swordmasters. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come in. Are you stupid? Even if we swordmasters can't get this inheritance, there are many good things in this mysterious place. If we take some out, it will be enough for us to live comfortably for decades. That's reasonable. I thought too simply. Hearing the words of the god from Kaven, the magicians were boiling. Although the swordmasters were disappointed, they didn't retreat. Instead, they were determined to find good things in the tomb of the gods. If they couldn't get the most important inheritance, they couldn't let go of other things. It seems that you are all ready. Now the first test will begin. I believe everyone has seen the several doors in the hall, and you have made your choice. What I want to tell you now is that each door represents a small world. After you enter the small world, you will encounter all kinds of dangers. Pick up your weapons and get rid of the obstacles in front of you. Use your wisdom to find a way to leave the small world. The first 100 people to leave the small world will enter the second round of the test. Do your best, adventurers. I will be waiting for you at the second stage. That dignified and powerful voice finally sounded, and all the adventurers who entered this place were on high alert, wanting to be the first to pass the first test. In the depths of the underground where no one could see, a black shadow opened its blood-red eyes excitedly. Come to me quickly. After waiting for so many years, this day has finally come. Ha 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 ha. The adventurers who were transported into the small world naturally didn't know that there was an unidentified monster waiting excitedly for their arrival in the depths of the underground. These people were all dazzled by the inheritance of the gods and the treasures from the tomb of the gods. No one could imagine what was waiting for them in front of them. Fengwu stared blankly at the sky. After a while, she blinked her sour eyes. Find the exit? Fengwu muttered to herself and continued to move forward. Fengwu was a polite girl. In this grassland, Fengwu made many magical beast friends. When she saw them, she would take the initiative to greet them. She would also share her spiritual fruits with her friends. Those magical beasts would not take advantage of Fengwu. They would always repay their friends with better spiritual fruits and rare spiritual herbs. Fengwu's journey could be said to be smooth sailing. She didn't encounter any danger. Like Fengwu, the adventurers who entered the grassland map were not so lucky. In the endless grassland, there were thousands of magical beasts living. Most of them lived in groups. If you killed one, you would attract a group. The adventurers who entered this map suffered heavy casualties. It didn't take long for the originally quiet grassland to be filled with the faint smell of blood. It carried the smell of blood that floated on the grassland. It drifted further and further away, becoming thicker and thicker. Drew was an 18-year-old youth. When he was young, he had also participated in the entrance examination of the Notre Dame du Starlight. In the end, he failed. Since then, he had been practicing swordsmanship at home with his father. His father was an ordinary adventurer with average strength, but he wasn't weak either. After so many years, Drew had also practiced swordsmanship with his father. Not long ago, Drew's father had accepted a mission to collect some rare spiritual herbs. In the end, he was injured by the poison of the guardian magical beast. Now he could only rely on some medicine to sustain his life. It was said that in the two-realm battlefield, there was a magical spiritual fruit that could cure all poisons in the world. The price of this spiritual fruit was so high that Drew couldn't afford it even if he earned money for his whole life. In order to beg his father, Drew could only go to the two-realm battlefield personally, hoping to find the spiritual fruit he needed. After coming to the two-realm battlefield, Drew met a few young people who had also come to the two-realm battlefield to gain experience. Because everyone was about the same age, they hit it off immediately and knew to move together. A few days after entering the two-realm battlefield, news of the appearance of the tomb of the god of sin came. Drew didn't have much interest in the tomb of the god of sin. He knew that with his strength, entering such a dangerous place like the tomb of the god of sin, his chances of survival were not high. However, his companions wanted to go very much. They even persuaded him that it would be easier to find the spiritual fruit he wanted in the tomb of the god of sin. Only then did he agree to enter the dangerous tomb of the god of sin together. After entering the entrance of the tomb of the god of sin, the door they chose led to a grassland. This grassland was very large and they couldn't see the end of it at all. The appearance of the god of sin called Caven made his companions even crazier. They wanted to pass the test and obtain the inheritance of the god of sin. The magicians in their team showed their determination to obtain the inheritance. And at this moment, he was in a tough battle with his companions. Damn it, why are there so many wolves? A rather handsome young man gritted his teeth and cursed as he used fire magic to force back the pack of wolves. Chapter 140. Ollie, what should we do now? Yat's face was stained with wolf blood after he slashed a wolf with his sword. He looked at Ollie anxiously, hoping that Ollie, who was the strongest in the group, could come up with an idea. Ollie, think of something. Karina, the green-haired girl in a white magician's robe, no longer had her usual elegance. There were 6 of them, 3 swordmasters and 3 magicians. Although they didn't have any casualties yet, they were exhausted after a period of constant fighting. Drew, you block them first. I have a life-saving attack scroll that my teacher gave me. I need some time to activate it. Ollie, who everyone had high hopes for, didn't let them down. He indeed had a last resort. Okay. The tall but honest Drew nodded fiercely. Drew began to kill more and more fiercely, hoping to buy time for his companions to activate the scroll. However, he didn't notice that the people he thought were his companions were looking at him as if he was a fool. There was deep pity in their eyes. Yes, this was indeed Alan's last resort. However, it wasn't an attack scroll, but a random teleportation scroll. This teleportation scroll's level was relatively high. It could teleport up to 10 people at a time. It took time to activate the scroll, so someone had to stay behind to attract the attention of the wolves. Drew was the only one who joined the team later. At this time, he was the only one who would be sacrificed. Back then, they had allowed a stranger to join them because they saw that Drew was honest and had good swordsmanship. When they were in danger, Drew could help them fight for a chance to escape. It was because of this reason that they had allowed a stranger to join the team. Eli and the others rejoiced as they activated the magic scrolls. Fortunately, they had allowed this person to join the party. Otherwise, who would have been willing to make the final sacrifice? After a flash of white light, the 5 members of Ali's team disappeared. Drew, who was fighting bravely, heard the sound and thought that the attack scroll had been successfully activated. However, when he turned around, he saw Ollie and the others looking at him with gloating faces. Then, they all disappeared in the white light. No matter how stupid Drew was, he knew that he had been deceived. The wolves had already surrounded him, and he had no way of surviving alone. 10 minutes later, Drew finally couldn't hold on any longer. His hand that was holding the sword was covered in wolf blood. His back, hands, and legs were all covered in blood from being bitten by the demon wolves. Due to the excessive blood loss and the loss of physical strength, Drew couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed onto the grass. At the last moment before he lost consciousness, he seemed to see a blurry shadow slowly walking towards him. Fengwu walked aimlessly for a few hours. When she reached the area where the demon wolves lived, she heard the sound of fighting. Fengwu hoped to meet Ajur and the others, so she trotted over. However, as soon as she arrived, she saw a man covered in blood lying on the ground. Fengwu wanted to ask him if he had seen Ajur and the others, so she walked over and discussed with the demonic wolves. Finally, they managed to save the man's life. When Drew woke up again, he found himself lying on a large rock. The wounds on his body had been treated. Struggling to sit up, he found a beautiful black-haired girl sitting not far from him. The girl was expressionlessly looking at the sky. When she heard him get up, she slowly turned her head to look at him. The 2 of them looked at each other like this, neither of them saying a word. In the end, Drew couldn't take it anymore. Facing Fengwu's expressionless face, he finally spoke. Hello. Did you save me? Fengwu nodded. Have you seen Ajur and Mingxi? Were they her friends? Drew thought to himself, then shook his head. I haven't seen them. Oh. Fengwu replied indifferently. Then, she took out a spirit fruit from her space ring and handed it to Drew. Thank you. Drew took the spirit fruit and thanked her. Oh right, I'm Drew. Thank you for saving me, Drew said with a friendly smile. The pain in his body hadn't disappeared, but it was still bearable. The pain reminded him from time to time that everything he experienced was so real. If it weren't for the wounds on his body, he would have thought that he was just having a nightmare of being abandoned by his companions and almost dying under the claws of a wolf. I'm Fengwu. You're welcome. The Fengwu girl's expressionless face didn't change at all. Drew was very curious. What method did Fengwu use to save him from the claws of so many wolves? But after seeing Fengwu's expressionless face, he decided to raise the favorability of his savior first before asking. With that thought, Drew opened his mouth to eat the spirit fruit Fengwu gave him. The fruit melted in his mouth and was very sweet. Not long after eating, he felt the wounds on his body itch. He slightly unwrapped the bandages to take a look. His originally bloody wounds had actually grown new flesh. The newly grown flesh was light pink and looked very delicate. This was too miraculous. Who exactly was this savior of his? She actually casually gave such a precious spirit fruit to other people to eat. While Drew was surprised, he was also somewhat touched. After experiencing the betrayal of his companions, the kindness he received from Fengwu was so precious. He secretly swore that if there was a chance in the future, he would definitely repay this young girl who saved him. After eating the spirit fruit, Drew's wounds healed very quickly. Not long after, he was almost fully healed and could already set off on the road with Fengwu. Fengwu asked a few passing magical beasts along the way, and really asked where the passage out of this place was. As for Ollie and the others who left Drew behind to escape, they were lucky enough to be transported to a relatively peaceful area. Other than a few wandering magical beasts, there weren't any huge groups of magical beasts. This could be considered very lucky. The 5 of them firmly believed that Drew must have died under the claws of the wolf pack. Regarding Drew's death, they didn't feel anything. He was originally recruited to be cannon fodder. Now that he died, it was a worthy death. Wasn't this just right? They never would have thought that Drew's luck would be so good to meet Fengwu. This girl with a special innate ability. Ever since Drew was saved by Fengwu, he had been following Fengwu. Fengwu also didn't chase him away. She didn't dislike Drew and felt that he was a good person. Chapter 141. Drew, on the other hand, felt that the Fengwu girl was a magical girl. As long as he was with Fengwu, the originally dangerous prairie became a lot calmer and lovelier. Why did he feel this way? He had to start from the beginning. In the first hour of Drew and Fengwu's journey, they encountered a large group of fire attribute magic beasts. These fire attribute magic beasts were called Raging Flame Magic Eagles. They were intermediate fire attribute magic beasts. They lived in the sky and their fire attribute magic beasts were very powerful. Moreover, these magic beasts bred very quickly and liked to fight in groups. Although they were not the most powerful magical beasts in this prairie, they were still feared by the other races because of the large number of members in their group. Think about it. If you can't beat them by yourself, they can attack you in groups. Even if they take turns fighting you, they can kill you. The higher the level of a magical beast, the more difficult it was to reproduce. The flaming magic eagles were definitely one of the most productive magical beasts in the prairie. Moreover, these magical beasts were very stingy and vengeful. If you offended one of these magical beasts, you would be hunted to death by the whole group of flaming magic eagles. When they first entered the territory of the flaming magic eagles, Drew was so scared that his legs almost turned to jelly. A few dozen magical wolves were enough to kill them all. What would hundreds and thousands of flaming magic eagles do to him and Fengwu? This was the rhythm of tearing them to pieces. Drew's legs trembled as he protected Fengwu behind him. No matter what, this girl was his savior. He was the one who almost died. If worst came to worst, he would try his best to block them and buy time for the girl behind him to escape. Drew clenched his teeth and tightened his grip on the knife in his hand. He was ready to fight to the death. A large group of flaming magic eagles had already surrounded them. These magical beasts' eyes were shining. They looked like they had not eaten for a long time, and suddenly found an edible meal in front of them. Just as Drew was prepared to sacrifice himself for the little girl behind him, a white and tender little hand suddenly pulled him away. Don't be afraid, the eagles are friends. They won't hurt you. Fengwu felt that Drew was afraid of her new friends not long ago, so she kindly comforted him. At the same time, Fengwu did not understand. The eagles were clearly so cute, so why was Drew so afraid of them? Little eagles? Drew always knew that he was not smart. His father often told him not to trust others easily. If he trusted the wrong person, he would be scolded to death. The actions of Alan's group had successfully confirmed his master's words, and he, who hadn't believed it before, had already been defeated. However, he didn't expect that the blow had just begun. Why was Feng Wu's words so difficult to understand? Speaking of which, who was shouting? Little Eagles couldn't really mean what he understood? And don't be afraid. They are all my friends, they won't harm you. Feng Wu explained seriously. She didn't want her cute friends to be misunderstood as bad beasts. But young lady, are you sure this is a misunderstanding? The friendliness of these magical beasts isn't like this to everyone. It was a pity that Feng Wu didn't understand this at the moment. She was still clumsily trying to comfort Drew, who was so scared that his face was pale, and his hands and feet were not listening to him. Drew stared blankly at the girl who was familiar with the way to the territory of the flaming magic eagles. She ate spirit fruits, drank spirit spring water, and gave some rare spirit plants and rare magic materials as a friendly gift. Drew found that he was speechless. Unfortunately, Drew didn't know that this was just the beginning. Along the way, the Feng Wu girl brought Drew to witness her heaven-defying ability to make friends. No matter how fierce the magical beasts were, they could become good friends with the Feng Wu girl in the end. A large number of spirit fruits, spirit plants, and magic materials were given away by the magical beasts like cabbages. In fact, to the magical beasts, spirit fruits and spirit plants were very useful. Magic materials were useless to them. The weapons that magical beasts used in battle were their own bodies. They didn't need any magic materials to make weapons. The magical beasts knew that humans were very fond of these so-called magic materials, so they gave a lot of them to Feng Wu. Feng Wu had read a lot of books, so she naturally knew what these magic materials were. She happily accepted the gifts from her friends. She also took out the food she liked in the outside world and shared it with everyone. Fortunately, this girl was a foodie and always had all kinds of delicious food in her space ring. Although Feng Wu had a lot of food in her space ring, there were too many magical beasts and too little porridge. The food in Feng Wu's space ring was quickly emptied. After encountering many magical beasts, Feng Wu and Drew finally found the exit to the second stage. They didn't walk very fast. When they found the exit following the instructions of the magical beasts, there were already a lot of people gathered at the exit. The location of the exit was very special. It was actually under a pool, and there was a powerful water-type demonic beast living in the pool. The demonic beast was extremely powerful, and it was not an opponent that could be defeated by one or two people. The people who first discovered the exit had no choice but to spread the location of the exit, hoping that more people would come to kill the guardian boss together. There were at least 50 people gathered around the pool. Originally, there were a lot of people who entered this stage, but the grassland was very dangerous. Most people couldn't make it to the end and died in this stage. Xiao Wu. Not long after Feng Wu arrived, she heard a familiar voice. A sexy beauty ran toward her excitedly. Feng Wu was no stranger to this beauty. The person was Elena. Elena was followed by a somewhat disheveled Eve. When Eve saw Feng Wu, she didn't seem to care. From her expression, it was obvious that she didn't want to come over. If it weren't for the fact that she only met Elena, and that Elena seemed to want to team up with Feng Wu, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to walk up to Feng Wu. Senior Elena. Feng Wu greeted obediently. Feng Wu quite liked this senior of hers, Elena. Although she liked to touch her and Ajur always told her to be careful and not to let her take advantage of her. What kind of advantage would she take? Feng Wu couldn't think of anything. Xiao Wu, I finally met someone I know. As soon as I entered the entrance, Eve and I fell into this pool together. We were almost eaten by the big monster in the water. Senior is so pitiful. Elena threw herself into Feng Wu's arms as soon as she saw her. She hugged the Feng Wu girl and cried about her unhappy experience. Chapter 142. Senior Arguros said that Senior Sister is a tough girl and won't be defeated like this. Xiao Wu believes Senior Sister. Team Feng Wu really said that Arguros used Elena's strength as a story to tell to Feng Wu girl. Feng Wu girl naturally imagined Elena as a super tough girl with heaven-defying strength, although she didn't know what a tough girl meant. Elena, who didn't know anything about all this, only now knew that her image had been ruined by her useless teammates. Elena now bore a grudge against Arguros, and the villain in her heart was baring fangs and brandishing claws, wanting to beat the bastard named Arguros into a pig's head. Arguros, you bastard. Wait until I meet you, I'll let you know why the flowers are so red. Arguros, who was far away in another small world, sneezed fiercely. Strange, why did it suddenly become so cold? Xiaowu, don't listen to that kid's nonsense. Your senior sister is a lady, how can I be a tough girl? In front of Fengwu, Elena would never admit that she was a tough girl. Fengwu looked up doubtfully, not knowing who to believe. Who's this kid? Why is he walking with Xiaowu? Elena just noticed that there was a young man standing beside Fengwu. Looking at his dazed look, one could tell that he was a big dumb guy. Drew, who didn't know that he was labeled as a big dumb guy, was smiling at Elena in a friendly manner. Although he didn't know who this woman was, seeing that she had a good relationship with Fengwu, he should curry favor with her. Nice to meet you, ladies. I'm Drew. Xiaowu is my savior. Then, Drew told them everything that had happened to him. Elena listened with a smile, while Eve didn't care. She was a noble lady, and a poor swordsman living in the lower class was from a different world from her. Naturally, Eve wouldn't have any sympathy for people from different worlds. I see. Next time you see those guys who abandoned you, you should rush up and let them know why the flowers are so red. Elena said fiercely. As a tough girl, Elena hated those who abandoned their companions and ran for their lives. What they did was a lie, and it was a lie from the beginning. Elena had always hated that kind of person. So stupid to be deceived like this. Eve said disdainfully. Drew didn't get angry. He scratched his head embarrassedly. He wasn't smart to begin with, and his father often called him stupid. He was already used to people calling him that. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. I'm Elena, Xiaowu's senior. This is Eve, who's in the same class as Fengwu. We're all students of Notre Dame du Starlight. Elena frowned inwardly. As a well-educated noble, Elena wasn't used to Eve's style. It was as if she was more noble than everyone else. Eve's behavior made Elena, who was always carefree, a little unhappy. Fortunately, after returning to the academy, she wouldn't have many chances to cross paths with Eve. You're all students of Notre Dame du Starlight? That's amazing. I've tried to take the Notre Dame du Starlight before, but the acceptance rate was too low. My aptitude wasn't too good, so I didn't pass. When he heard that the three of them were the top students of the continent's #1 academy, he admired them even more. Drew wasn't someone who liked to be jealous of others. When others did something he couldn't, he would only admire them and work harder. He would never spend his time being jealous of others. Fengwu probably saw through Drew's character, so she tacitly allowed him to stay by her side. Otherwise, she could have left after Drew woke up and asked for the information she wanted. Drew was a simple and honest person. When Elena saw that there wasn't any jealousy in his eyes after hearing about their identities, and that she herself had failed the Notre Dame du Starlight, only admiration and envy, she began to have a good impression of Drew and Elena. Senior Elena, why are there so many people gathered here? Fengwu asked Elena, puzzled. She didn't understand. This was the entrance to the second level, so why were these people just standing here and chatting? They're waiting for someone to make the first move. The entrance to the second level is at the bottom of the pool, but there's a very powerful water magic beast guarding it. Unless all of us join forces, it's really impossible to fight that water magic beast. Even if we join forces, many people will die in this level, so no one wants to be the first to make the first move. Under normal circumstances, the first to make the first move will attract a lot of hatred. Elena said with a frown. She also didn't want to make the first move. If they didn't work together, they would die. It was better to observe the situation first. Oh. Fengwu nodded, somewhat understanding. Everyone, quiet down. We're currently trapped in this level, so we have to work together to get out. There's no point in waiting any longer. Why don't we attack together now, defeat that water magic beast, and leave this level together? A middle-aged man wearing a red cloak and holding a long sword stood elegantly on a large rock, looking down from above. Isn't this Sir Ander, the captain of the 4th squad of the werewolf mercenaries? As expected of a great swordsman. Just standing there gives off such an imposing aura. Isn't that right? I've been training hard for more than 20 years, but I'm still only an intermediate swordsman. This is great. With Sir Ander taking charge of the situation, we'll definitely be able to get out of this damned place. There were about 100 people gathered here. Unfortunately, because no one was willing to take charge, the hearts of the people weren't too united. Now there was someone who was willing to take charge of the situation, and it was a powerful great swordsman at that. Naturally, no one would object. Although the two-realm battlefield was a famous danger zone, it was no longer suitable for great swordsmen and above. Therefore, very few great swordsmen and above would come here. Even if such an expert came, they would definitely bring their juniors here to level up. Because of the above reasons, so many people approved of Ander's appearance. They were even very happy that he stepped forward. Although it was Ander who took charge of the situation in the end, it didn't mean that he was the only great swordsman here. There were over 100 people gathered here, so how could Ander be the only great swordsman? It was only because those people either came from small clans or were lone wolves. They didn't have as much background as Ander. With Ander's appearance, everyone was gathered. Swordmasters attacked at close range, magicians attacked from afar, and light magicians and wood magicians were responsible for healing the injured. Chapter 143. Wood and light magic both had healing properties, but there weren't many wood mages, and even fewer light mages. Fortunately, there were a few wood mages and 2 light mages among the 100 or so people. This was a pleasant surprise. After arranging their positions, the mages began to attack the water surface, hoping to lure the water magic beast out. After a series of magic attacks, a huge python-like magic beast emerged from the water as expected. The powerful pressure and the stinky breath of the magic beast made the people in the dark feel slightly uncomfortable. When Fengwu saw the magic beast emerge from the water, she immediately pulled up the information about this magic beast in her mind. This was a powerful water magic beast, the black water python. The black water python liked to live in cold water. Its attacks were of the water attribute, but the water it used to attack was black. Although it wasn't poisonous, it was recognized as the coldest water in the world. Those who were hit by the black water python's water attack would feel their bodies become incomparably cold, as if they were in hell. If the person hit by the black water was a man, then he could rely on the yang fire in his body to hold on for a while. As long as he found a place of extreme yang, he could rely on the yang energy in his body to dispel the cold air of the black water. But if the person hit by the black water was a woman, then the woman's body would be of the yin attribute without any yang energy to resist. If she was hit by the extremely cold black water, then she would immediately be frozen into ice and die. This battle was too unfavorable for the women. Clearly, Fengwu wasn't the only one familiar with the black water python's characteristics. When Ando was drafting the battle plan, he had warned the female adventurers to be careful not to be hit by the black water attack. If they were unlucky enough to be hit by the black water, then no one would be able to save them. Most of the female adventurers who came out on an adventure were not delicate. Although they were worried about their own safety, they calmly accepted it and said that they would be careful. Some of the young ladies who had been doted on by their families were very uneasy. They didn't want to die, and after knowing the characteristics of the black water python, they were even more afraid of death. They had already lost the courage to fight, and only wanted to stay as far away as possible. Eve was one of these people. She didn't want to fight anymore. Why should she go when there were so many people attacking? She didn't want to go, it was too dangerous. If she was frozen by the black water, no one would be able to save her. Elena was a tough girl, and her strength was ranked in the top 10 of the 5th grade. Naturally, she wasn't afraid of the black water python's challenge. As for Fengwu, she didn't plan to make a move. In Fengwu's heart, little animals were all cute, and she couldn't lay her hands on cute little animals. Although the snake was a little big, Fengwu still couldn't take it lightly. The black water python seemed to have noticed Fengwu as well. Its large vertical pupils looked in the direction of Fengwu. As there were many people in that direction, no one knew who the black water python was looking at. When Fengwu saw the black water python looking over, a faint smile suddenly appeared on her stoic face, and she nodded at it in a friendly manner. The black water python narrowed its eyes, seeming to be in a good mood. It seemed this black water python still had good intentions towards Fengwu. Fengwu had a dense aura of nature, so she was very popular with magical beasts. Normal magical beasts would like Fengwu as long as they weren't so cruel that they couldn't be saved. It's looking over, it must want to attack us. Everyone, hurry up and attack. What are you waiting for? A young swordmaster clearly couldn't stand the black water python's gaze. That gaze was too frightening. He seemed to feel that it was in a good mood. What the hell? Why did he have this feeling? Could it be that this magical beast was in a good mood because they had so much food delivered to its door? This guy was clearly overthinking things. He was so scared that he almost peed his pants at the thought of his brain being eaten by a black water python. There were many people who thought this way. In an instant, magic attacks were launched towards the black water python. Because the swordmasters were melee fighters, they had no choice but to get close to the black water python to attack. Fortunately, Ando took the lead. He was the first to rush towards the black water python. Seeing that Ando had already attacked, the others naturally followed suit. Other than a few female swordmasters who were timid and didn't dare to attack, the other males all rushed forward aggressively like a swarm of bees. Fengwu stood there without moving. Elena and Drew had already rushed forward to join the attack team. As there were still a few female swordmasters who didn't go forward like Fengwu, no one paid special attention to Fengwu. The most important thing was that Fengwu was too young. At this age she was at most a beginner swordmaster, and she wouldn't exceed level 5. Letting a beginner swordmaster who wasn't even level 5 attack a high-level magical beast, the black water python, wasn't that sending her to her death? This black water python was a high-level magical beast from birth, and it was unknown how many years it had cultivated in this space. Its strength had probably already reached level 30, and it was impossible for it to be lower than level 30. Such an opponent, and a magical beast with thick skin and thick flesh, was really not easy to defeat. By the side of the pool, there were flashes of swords and flashes of light. Magic spells were flying all over the sky. The sword masters had to be careful. They were afraid that if they were not careful, those flying magic light balls would hit them. If that happened, they would not be able to rest in peace. The black water python stood motionless in the water, letting the little bug in front of it attack at will. After a while, perhaps because it was impatient, its vertical eyes narrowed, and its smelly mouth spat out a large amount of black water. The moment the black water came out, a strong cold air suddenly appeared, causing people to shiver. The black water is here. Everyone be careful. Ando shouted, reminding the others to be careful as he retreated in a direction, his movements as fast as a bird. When humans were at the boundary of life and death, they could often explode with powerful potential. No one didn't know the terror of the black water. When the black water came out, everyone put down their attacks and chose to run for their lives. Even Elena and Drew retreated at the first moment. Xiao Wu, be careful. Don't let the black water touch your body. Eve too, be careful. Elena didn't turn her head, her eyes watching the black water python's every move. And Fengwu replied, although she didn't think that the black water python would attack her. Eve, on the other hand, nodded desperately with tears in her eyes. It was obvious that she was scared by the black water, and was about to cry. Because Eve was a magician, she naturally stood with the other magicians to attack from a distance. Eve's strength wasn't strong, and she was only level 5 at most. In a magician's team, weak magicians were like weak swordmasters. They were all sent to the first team to be cannon fodder. Chapter 144. It wasn't that Eve didn't want to retreat to the back, but the people behind her were all beginner magicians. She couldn't afford to offend them. She could only stand in the front row with tears in her eyes, afraid that the black water would fly towards her. Magicians, use your magic. Hurry up and attack. After the attack of the black water, the sword masters shouted and urged the magicians to speed up their attacks. They wanted to attack the black water serpent in close combat, but the black water serpent didn't want to give them the chance. The black water serpent suddenly jumped out of the water and hit the magicians who were attacking it with its long body with a strong airflow. Magicians were not like swordmasters. They were all fragile. With this attack, The magicians standing in the front row were in danger. The magicians standing in the second row managed to escape, but the magicians standing in the first row were sent flying by this attack. They all vomited blood, and their faces were as pale as paper. Some of them even stopped breathing after this attack. However, in such a critical situation, no one had the time to pay attention to how many people had died under the python's attacks. The most important thing now was to defeat the Blackwater python. They had to leave this place as soon as possible to reach the second stage. Only then would they be able to survive. Eve thought she was dead for sure. She only had time to scream before she was sent flying. Don't get me wrong, she wasn't sent flying. She was saved by someone, and it was Fengwu. Fengwu used her qinggong to lift Eve to the other side. Only then did she avoid the fate of being sent flying. Elena also wanted to save Eve, but the black water python was too fast. By the time she reacted, she only had time to escape. Elena sighed in relief when she saw Fengwu save Eve. Although Eve's personality wasn't very likable, she was still her junior. She naturally didn't want to see her junior die in front of her. Eve was saved. Before she could react, she had already been placed on the ground. As soon as her feet touched the grass, her legs gave way, and she sat on the ground. Her skirt was wet with yellow liquid, and there was a faint smell of urine in the air. She was so scared that she peed. Fengwu wrinkled her small nose when she smelled the smell. She's already so old and she's still peeing? Fengwu remembered that when she went down the mountain with her master, she also smelled the same urine on an old man. Her master said that it was because he was old and sick, so he couldn't control his body. Eve was still so young. Was she sick too? Fengwu tilted her head. She didn't understand. Eve also realized that she was a virgin. Her whole face turned red with embarrassment. She should be glad that everyone was busy attacking the black python, and no one was paying attention to her. Otherwise, she would have lost a lot of face. Mage's clothes were all enchanted with cleansing spells, and Eve's clothes were no exception. The urine on her pants and skirt was quickly cleaned up by the cleansing spells on her clothes. Elena noticed something strange when she came over to help Eve up. However, she didn't say anything for the sake of the girl's dignity. Instead, she told Drew not to come over and help the swordmaster's attack to save some face for Eve. After Eve's body was cleaned, she told Eve to be careful. Elena joined the attack team again. Don't worry. Drink some medicine if you're sick. You'll be fine soon. Fengwu girl still thought that Eve was sick and couldn't control her body's reaction. She never thought that there was such a thing as peeing in fear in this world. Eve's face turned purple. She looked at Fengwu with hatred in her eyes. She wanted nothing more than to kill the girl in front of her. Eve didn't think that Fengwu was really comforting her. She only thought that Fengwu was mocking her. Senior Elena and the others said that Fengwu was pure and kind. That was a lie. How could a pure and kind person mock someone when they were in such a sorry state? Sure enough, other than Zicheng, there weren't any good people in this world. They were all hypocrites. She didn't even remember that her life was saved by Fengwu. Hatred had already covered her heart and eyes. She only had one thought now, and that was to kill Fengwu. Otherwise, she would definitely tell everyone about how she peed in fear. She didn't want to become the laughingstock of the entire school. She definitely didn't want to. Don't be so smug, you hypocritical woman. Don't think that you can threaten me just because you know about this. Don't even think about it. After shouting, Eve turned around and ran back to the magician team. She didn't look at Fengwu again. Fengwu girl stood in place, blinking her eyes. What's going on? The battle was still going on. More and more people died. In the end, more and more people died. The entire pool was almost dyed red with human blood. The black python continued to fight with ease. It didn't seem like it was going to lose. This made the humans more and more anxious. If they couldn't beat the black python, would they have to stay in this place forever? They didn't want that. The black python attacked again. This time, the encirclement was even larger. Regardless of gender, their first reaction was to stop the attack in front of them and dodge as quickly as possible. Fengwu stood on the side again and watched the others fight. She couldn't possibly attack the black python that had no grudge with her. Moreover, the black python clearly had a good impression of her. It avoided her several attacks. Naturally, Fengwu couldn't attack the black python when it was intentionally going easy on her. The black python had already left the pool. Those who were quick-witted had already seen the way out. They couldn't beat it. The only thing they could do now was to escape while others were drawing aggro. More than one person had this thought. When the black python attacked, most people were busy dodging. However, there was a small group of people who saw the hope of escaping. They directly rushed towards the pool and jumped into the water with a splash. They swam towards the only exit. The first group to jump into the water was the leader of the fourth team of the werewolf mercenaries, Ando, and the mercenaries he led. There were only 5 people in total. The werewolf mercenaries didn't all enter the same door. Instead, they split into a few small groups and entered different doors. Ando didn't want to give up even a little bit of hope. Who knew which door the so-called inheritance was behind? This way, the chances of success were naturally higher. However, Ando didn't expect that it would be the same no matter which door they entered. This was only the first round of elimination. After the werewolf mercenaries had all disappeared into the pool, the remaining people finally reacted. Bastards, those werewolf mercenaries are indeed bad people. They actually used us to draw the black python's attention while they escaped. A swordsman who had just dodged the black python's attack raised his sword and cursed. Chapter 145. I knew those big mercenary groups couldn't be trusted. These bastards, I hope they die in the second trial. Those still fighting the black water python were furious. They'd agreed to leave together after killing the black water python. But in the end, they'd all been killed as cannon fodder. Those who'd been left behind were furious and wanted to spit out 3 liters of blood. Ando had played a good hand this time. No one would have thought that a leader of a big mercenary group like him would go back on his word and run away with his own people, not caring about their lives at all. Everyone was furious, but there was nothing they could do about Ando. He'd already run out of the first trial. And unless they could chase him to the second trial to settle the score, they could only curse him in their hearts. Many people were cursing Ando, but Ando's actions made them understand one thing. Killing the blackwater python wasn't the only way to get to the second level. Guanjian had to get close to the entrance of the second level. More and more people tried to enter the water in the following battles, and there were a few who were lucky enough to pass. However, the black water python wasn't a stupid beast. It immediately wanted to return to the pool and block the exit when it realized what the humans were trying to do. How could the adventurers let the black water python, which was finally willing to move its nest, go back to block the entrance? Regardless of whether it was a mage or a swordmaster, they all launched their strongest attacks together. No matter what, they couldn't let that damned black water python return to the pool. The black water python looked disdainfully at the humans who'd overestimated themselves. If it hadn't been for its carelessness, did they really think they'd be able to pass through its territory so easily? They were thinking too much. Go kill this monster. If we don't kill it, we won't be able to leave this place. Someone shouted. At this moment, everyone didn't care who was shouting. They all used their magic and sword skills to attack the black serpent with murderous intent. They only hoped that this damn magic beast would die soon so that they could pass the trial. Elena immediately retreated to Fengwu and Eve's side after dodging an attack from the Blackwater. She said softly, "We'll leave from the bottom of the pool when there's an opportunity. This Blackwater python is too strong, and it's impossible for us to kill it with our strength." Elena was certainly a very experienced senior. She'd long since seen that this Blackwater python wasn't an ordinary character. It was too difficult to kill it, and could even be said to be an impossible mission. Unless an even stronger existence made a move, they'd be nothing more than fodder. If it wasn't for the fact that the black water python didn't have such a strong desire to kill them, they would have died long ago. With the black water python's strength, it wasn't impossible for it to kill everyone. It's just a matter of whether it's willing to do so. At a time like this, if he didn't find a chance to leave, would he really kill the black python with these people and then leave? Dream on. Drew had also retreated to Fengwu's side, and happened to hear Elena's words. He agreed with Elena's idea that they had to find an opportunity to escape from the bottom of the pool. Otherwise, they'd really be trapped here. Of course, Elena wasn't the only one who'd seen this point. Anyone with half a brain could see it. They all had the same idea as Elena and wanted to find an opportunity to escape. When the black water finished its attack, quite a few people were hit by it because they couldn't dodge in time. The men were better off, almost freezing into ice, but the women were unlucky. They were directly frozen into popsicles. Go. At Elena's command, Fengwu and Drew immediately gave chase. Although Eve was very scared, she grit her teeth and charged towards the black water python with Elena in order to leave. The sound of weapons hitting the black water python's body and the sound of magic activating resounded through the air. The air was filled with dense magical energy, and the battle was getting more and more intense. Elena led Fengwu and the others to kill their way out, but they didn't expect the black water python to ignore them. Although Elena was surprised, it was better to ignore them completely. It was better to ignore them completely and not suddenly think of them in the middle of the battle. Elena and the others were ignored, but the others were naturally the focus. Black water attacks, wild dance of the snakes, they were all skills that were used with all their might. In a short time, more and more people were injured and fell to the ground. Screams and cries of pain rang out, but they didn't even leave a small mark on the black water python's body. What a huge irony and failure this was. When they passed by the black water python, Elena and the others were nervous. They were afraid that the monster would suddenly think of them. At such a close distance, there was no place to hide. Fortunately, the black water python didn't seem to be interested in them at all. It was attacking the others with all its might, and didn't even look at Fengwu and the others. In fact, the black water python was intentionally going easy on them. After all, it had a good impression of the Fengwu girl. Originally, it only wanted to let the Fengwu girl leave alone, but it didn't expect that there would be a few hateful ants by her side. However, the black water python didn't care about these little bugs. After all, there were so many fun bugs for it to play with. Elena was the first to pass by the black water python. She turned around to tell Fengwu and the others to hurry over. Unexpectedly, the black water python turned its head to look at Fengwu and the others. This glance scared Elena half to death. She was afraid that the black water python would suddenly attack. At the same time, Eve and Drew were also shocked. Drew was still fine. He had a long sword in his hand and was ready to fight the black python himself. Then he told the two girls to leave as soon as possible. They were only a few steps away from the pool. They couldn't give up now. Fengwu was the calmest. She knew that the black water python wouldn't hurt them. She could feel the kindness coming from the black water python. Unfortunately, other than Fengwu, no one else could see this. Eve was standing a step away from Fengwu. The black water python was not far from Fengwu, and Fengwu was standing right in front of the black water python. Many scenes suddenly flashed through Eve's mind. During the entrance exam, because of Fengwu, the other examinees hated her. Fengwu also saw her in her worst state. If she pushed Fengwu out now, then she wouldn't have to be afraid anymore. She wouldn't have to be afraid that Fengwu would tell others what she saw. No one would target her because of Fengwu. As long as there was no 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 Fengwu. The voice seemed to have a demonic power. She couldn't control herself at all. Soon, a trace of hatred and determination flashed through Eve's eyes. Chapter 146. No one expected Eve to attack Fengwu. Although Drew could tell that the atmosphere between the two girls wasn't good, she didn't expect Eve to want to kill Fengwu. On the other hand, Elena didn't expect Eve to be so daring. Notre Dame du Starlight students were forbidden from killing each other. This was something the teachers taught the freshmen on the first day of school. She refused to believe that Eve didn't know this, but she still did it. She really did it right in front of them. Standing behind Fengwu, Eve suddenly pushed Fengwu's back with her pure white hands. Then, she ran for her life in the direction of the pool. She didn't see what would happen to Fengwu after she pounced on the black python. In her opinion, death was certain. Drew was stunned for a few seconds before he reacted. By the time he wanted to save Fengwu, it was already too late. He could only watch as Fengwu's body fell onto the black python's body. Instead of running for his life, Drew ran for his life toward the black python, hoping to use his strength to block its attack on Fengwu and save Fengwu's life. Eve looked at the pool that was just a step away from her and smiled. She was about to succeed. She was about to escape. Could she really escape? Reality told us that she was overthinking things. Just as Eve passed by Elena and was about to dive into the pool, a long snake tail suddenly wrapped around her and sprayed her with black water. Eve didn't even have time to cry for help before she was turned into a human-shaped ice cube. The black python clearly had no interest in Eve. With a swing of its tail, it threw Eve's frozen body to the ground. Thankfully, the black water was hard enough that it didn't shatter into pieces. When Elena saw how Eve had hurt her classmates behind her back, she was so angry that she wanted to get rid of her for the sake of the academy. She didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Eve had already received her retribution. This retribution came too quickly and caught everyone off guard. On the other hand, the Blackwater python had turned its head to attack Fengwu. Fengwu was naturally fine. In her opinion, she was only pushed by Eve and almost fell. It wasn't a big deal. That's right, Fengwu didn't fall on the black python as Eve thought. Instead, she flipped forward and stood up. Drew then ran over. Drew was also worried that his savior would be killed, but he found that the black python didn't care about them at all. Instead, it chased after Eve, who had already escaped. Although Drew felt that it was a little strange, he just treated it as that Eve was too vicious. She was so vicious that even a magical beast couldn't stand by and wanted to kill her. There were many people who saw the black python freeze Eve, but they didn't know why it did so. After all, it happened too suddenly. Other than Elena, who had been watching Fengwu and the others, no one would be bored enough to watch these little fellows. After the black python froze Eve, it attacked the others, ignoring Elena and the others once more. Elena was also puzzled as to why the black python was so uninterested in them. The only one who was attacked was Eve, who killed herself. But now wasn't the time to think about this. Her curiosity and surprise only lasted for a few seconds before Elena quickly grabbed the frozen Eve and put her into her space ring. Then, she jumped into the pool with Fengwu and Drew, who had already run over. After jumping into the pool, they didn't notice the group of people on the shore. Seeing that someone was about to escape, they were so envious that they almost vomited blood. Their attacks became even more frenzied. Damn it! Why couldn't they get out after fighting so hard for so long? Why were there so many bitches who escaped in the chaos? This wasn't fair. Those who were left behind almost turned into roaring horses and charged at the black python. Fengwu and the others, who had already jumped into the pool, felt a chill seeping into their bodies as soon as they entered the water. The temperature in the pool was so low that it was probably a few degrees below zero. With such cold water, it was no wonder that the black python, which had always lived here, could spit out cold water to attack. The three of them used their fighting aura to block the cold water. Without the black python chasing after them, they quickly reached the bottom of the pool. There was indeed a small black hole at the bottom of the pool that could allow two people to pass through. The three of them entered the hole one after another and rushed to the next level. Fengwu was still thinking when she entered the hole. She hadn't said goodbye to the black python yet. She didn't know if she would see it again in the future. The young girl's mood was a little down. She had seen how the black python had helped her take revenge. Fengwu was a little touched by the black python's protection. It was indeed a pity that she couldn't say goodbye to the friend she had just made. After swimming out of the hole, they actually entered a large hall. There was nothing in the hall except for a few people who were either standing or sitting in the hall, resting with their eyes closed. They didn't even see anyone talking. This group of people who had entered the hall before Fengwu, and the others saw that there were new people coming in. They just raised their eyes and didn't say anything. They continued to do what they were doing, wiping their swords or meditating. No one gave them a second glance. The three of their clothes were originally wet from the pool water, but after coming out of the hole, their clothes were actually dry. There wasn't even a single water stain left on them. Xiao Wu over here. A Zhi's voice suddenly rang out. Fengwu's eyes lit up when she heard the voice. Only then did she realize that a Zhi had already arrived in the hall. Sitting next to Ajur were Skycliff and Mingxi, as well as Zicheng and Irene. The others were nowhere to be seen. Elena and the others walked over to Ajur, who was waving at them. Fengwu was very happy to see Ajur. There was even a trace of a smile on her stoic face. Xiaowu, are you okay? As soon as Ajur saw Fengwu, he took the girl's little hand and pulled her to sit next to him. Next to Ajur was Mingxi. When Fengwu sat down, she even glanced at Mingxi, her eyes sparkling. I'm fine. I made a lot of new friends on the grassland. It was very fun. They gave me gifts. This is Drew. He's also a friend. Fengwu was talking about the large group of animal friends she made on the grassland. Finally, she mentioned Drew. Fengwu felt that Drew was a good person, so she also treated Drew as a friend. When she was pushed out by Eve, Drew didn't run away by himself. Instead, he ran towards her to save her. Although it was later proven that there wasn't any danger, Fengwu felt Drew's concern for her. Hello, I'm Drew. Fengwu is my savior. Drew scratched his head. He suddenly felt that Fengwu's friends had a very strong aura. There was the blonde youth, the silver-haired youth, and the red-haired youth who was talking to Xiaowu. Chapter 147. The three of them gave him a very strong feeling. The red-haired boy was like a ball of fire. Just by standing next to him, he could feel the fire element fluctuations coming from Xiaoyu. The silver-haired boy was as cold as ice. His eyes could freeze people into popsicles. The golden-haired youth. How should he put it? He was clearly smiling, and his smile was so gentle. Furthermore, he was so good-looking. He was simply the most good-looking youth he had ever seen since he was born. Even those young girls who thought they were beautiful could not compare to his appearance. The strange thing was that he was supposed to be a boy as gentle as the moonlight. Why did he feel a strong sense of danger when he looked at him? Drew couldn't figure it out, but he believed in his intuition. This boy was definitely very strong, and he wasn't someone to be trifled with. It had to be said that Drew's intuition was very accurate. If Elena knew what he was thinking, she would definitely pat him on the shoulder and praise him for his good eyesight. Even these friends of his only discovered that Mingxi was a hypocrite after interacting with him. They didn't expect Drew to discover it the first time they met. Hello, I'm Mingxi. I'm Fengwu's senior. Please sit. Mingxi looked at Drew with a smile. At first glance, he found that Drew was a very simple and honest boy. Therefore, he didn't object to Drew sitting with them. Drew obediently found a place to sit. He wanted to sit next to Fengwu, but unfortunately, there was no place next to Fengwu. Mingxi sat on her left and Ajur sat on her right. Drew's idea of sitting next to Fengwu was doomed to fail. Were you teleported to the grassland? You were much luckier than me. I was teleported to a swamp, and I almost couldn't see you again. Ajur thought of the disgusting underground creatures in the swamp. He even vomited the food he ate yesterday. If it weren't for those disgusting things that made his universe explode, he wouldn't have been able to get out of that damn small world so quickly. Mingxi, Skycliff, where have you been teleported to? Elena sat between Zicheng and Irene, and asked Skycliff and Mingxi curiously. I was transported to the mouth of a volcano. Mingxi smiled bitterly. He didn't know if his luck was good or bad, but he was actually teleported to such a place. I was teleported to an ice field. Skycliff said faintly. Ice plains? Your luck is too good. If you go to the ice field, you'll be like a fish back in water. Who would be your opponent? Elena secretly cursed the heavens for being so unfair. Mingxi was fine, but Skycliff was simply cheating. Letting a person who had comprehended the ice sword intent go to the ice field was like letting a fish go to the sea. This was cheating. At this time, Elena still didn't know that the girl who had been going through the grassland with her also cheated. Fortunately, she didn't know. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? Skycliff raised his eyebrows and didn't comment. Senior Elena, were you and Fengwu sent to the grassland together? Irene asked. Yes, but it wasn't the same place. Elena said. Senior Elena, did you see Eve and Rika? Zicheng was a bit worried about her two friends, especially Eve. It wasn't easy for Eve's favorability to rise to 100. She really didn't want anything to happen to Eve. When Elena heard the name Eve, her face stiffened. She originally planned to leave here and tell the others about the situation, but it seemed like there was no chance. Eve was fighting the last magical beast and was hit by the black water python. Her entire body was frozen, so I could only put her in my spatial ring. I'll think of a way to save her after we get out. If it was said that Elena didn't like Eve in the past, she now hated her very much. What right did a person who would harm her own classmates and teammates have to be liked by others? Seeing Zicheng so concerned about Eve, she really wanted to tell her what Eve did to Fengwu, but this wasn't the place to talk. There were still many people around that she didn't know. Elena didn't know that from the moment she appeared, huge waves had been set off in Irene's heart. According to the original plot, Elena shouldn't have survived to the second stage, because she would be frozen by the black water python in the first stage to save Eve. Her body would forever remain in the tomb of the gods. But now, Elena was alive and well, but Eve, who shouldn't have been in trouble, was in trouble. In the original plot, Elena died in the first stage. In Mingxi's team, only Elena, Zicheng, and Eve had entered the tomb of the gods together. The others didn't know about the tomb of the gods at all. When Zicheng took Eve out with the inheritance, he only told Mingxi and the others that the two of them fell into an ancient tomb with Elena. In the end, Elena was killed by a black water python in order to protect Eve. Although the people of Mingxi team didn't say anything at that time, they didn't team up with Zicheng and the others after returning to school. In Zicheng's life as the female lead, the people of Mingxi team were very few people who weren't attracted by the female lead's halo. From the original plot, it could be seen that Mingxi and the others were not without doubts about Elena's death. Unfortunately, they didn't have any evidence. Zicheng also proved that Elena really died to protect her junior. Even if they wanted to find trouble with Zicheng and the others, they couldn't find a reason to. Now the ending was reversed. However, she didn't know whether the ending changed because so many people who didn't appear in the original plot had come, or because Fengwu was among the people who were transported to the same place as Elena and the others. Irene used to suspect that Fengwu was also a member of the Transmigration Army. However, after this period of time, she was very sure that Fengwu was definitely not a transmigrator. Girls who transmigrated wouldn't be as dumb as her, nor would they be so simple. Irene now completely didn't think about it. Did transmigrators have to come from Earth? Couldn't they come from another world? Irene now completely walked into a misunderstanding that she didn't even realize. Senior Elena, please take out Eve's body for me to take a look. Maybe I can save her. When Zicheng heard that Eve was injured so badly that her whole body was frozen, he couldn't remain calm and said somewhat anxiously. Elena sighed. With a wave of her hand, a frozen human-shaped object appeared on the ground. When the people on the side saw Elena's actions, they only took a glance and then looked away. A woman who was frozen by the black water python. They had never heard of anyone who could come back to life. Chapter 148. Zicheng looked at Eve, whose expression was still frozen at the very last moment. Her eyes reddened. Although Eve had 1,000 faults, and her personality wasn't likable, it was undeniable that she'd treated Zicheng wholeheartedly. Eve, who was frozen by the black water, had her expression frozen at the last moment. From her eyes, one could see a trace of hatred, a trace of pride, and a trace of joy. Others might not understand the meaning behind those eyes, but Elena and Drew did. Her venom was because of Fengwu, her pride was because she'd schemed against Fengwu, and her joy was because she'd seen hope of escaping the previous trial. Only, Eve never would have thought that not only had she failed to scheme against Fengwu, she'd even landed herself in such a state. Zicheng, look on the bright side. The black water in this black python's body is the most water in the world. As long as it's a woman, she'll immediately be frozen into a block of ice. It's impossible to save Eve. Elena couldn't bear to see Zicheng so sad. No, I can save her. I want to try. Zicheng looked at the frozen Eve with a serious expression. All right then. Don't force yourself if you can't. You've tried your best. Elena patted her shoulder and couldn't bear to see her like this. From Elena's point of view, this was completely useless. Everyone knew how dangerous the black water was. None of the women who'd been hit by the black water had ever been able to come out of the ice. This wasn't just any ordinary block of ice. This was the most Yin water in the world. When it came into contact with the Yin energy in a woman's body, it wouldn't be that easy to break free. Irene wasn't the only one who thought this way. Mingxi and the others didn't think much of it either. Irene was the only one who knew how powerful the female lead's cheat was. She wasn't completely unconfident in the female lead. The female lead's favorability system wasn't just for show. It was mentioned in the novel that this system was very powerful. It could be exchanged for many good things that the strong people on this continent were jealous of. Even treasures like godhoods could be exchanged through the favorability system. At the end of the novel, didn't the female lead fuse with a divinity without any attributes and become a god? The male lead also obtained a divinity and became a god with the female lead. They ascended to the god realm and were free and unfettered. Now that the female lead said she wanted to save Zicheng, others might think it was a fantasy, but Irene believed that as long as the female lead wanted to, she might be able to do it. The female lead really was the female lead. A purple flame suddenly lit up in the female lead's hand. This flame was only a small flame, but it gave people a sense of apocalyptic crisis. No matter how you looked at it, that strange purple flame wasn't simple. That's the extreme purple sun flame, ranked 5th on the heavenly flame list. Someone exclaimed when they saw Zicheng release the purple flame. Everyone who heard this exclamation looked at the heavenly flame in Zicheng's hand with envy. There were a total of 10 heavenly flames on the heavenly flame list, and the extreme purple sun flame was ranked 5th. It was a pure yang attribute flame. This extreme purple sun flame could not only be used to fight enemies, but also to refine medicine. It could also increase the success rate. In short, it was a flame that people yearned for even in their dreams. As an alchemist, there was no one who didn't want to have a heavenly flame. Even if they weren't alchemists, having a heavenly flame was equivalent to having an additional means of attack. The attack of a heavenly flame wasn't something that ordinary magic could compare to. It was equivalent to having a heavenly flame in one's hand. It was no wonder that the people on this continent were so eager to have a heavenly flame. However, great opportunities were often accompanied by great risks. The only way to subdue a heavenly flame was to fuse oneself with the heavenly flame. If the fusion failed, one would immediately be burned to ashes. If one succeeded, one would be able to subdue a heavenly flame. From then on, one's combat strength would be off the charts, and one would immediately enter the ranks of the top heavenly treasure experts. However, since ancient times, the number of people who had successfully subdued a heavenly flame could be counted on one's fingers. The most important thing was that heavenly flames were rare. There were only 10 types of heavenly flames in the world. Except for the first type that no one had ever seen. The other 9 types were scattered all over the world. However, all heavenly flames had spirituality. Even if one encountered them, if one tried to forcefully fuse with it without the approval of the heavenly flame, the probability of death was as high as 90%. Even if the fusion was successful, one's body would also suffer great damage. Now there was a person who had successfully fused with a heavenly flame in front of them. Moreover, judging from her appearance, she had not been bitten by the heavenly flame. Moreover, this girl was so young. What an incredible thing this was. For a moment, gazes of jealousy, envy, and resentment began to revolve around Zicheng. Some people had a better mentality and let it go after envy. However, some people were narrow-minded and could not bear to see such a young girl obtain such a great opportunity. They already had the intention to kill Zicheng. People in this world were like this. If they could not become a genius, they would resent all the geniuses in the world. Many geniuses who did not have the time to grow up were ruined by others' jealousy and hatred. Fengwu looked at the small ball of purple flame and remembered that there seemed to be a ball of such flame at the back of Mount Yuehua. Her master said that it was a pure flame, the purest flame in the world. Anyone with impure thoughts would be burned by the pure flame. And the pure flame was the flame used to forge a pure sword. She remembered that in the end, the small ball of flame was absorbed into the body of Xiaochun's sword. Xiaochun and the small ball of flame fused together and became good friends. She remembered that when pure flame was still at the back of Mount Yuehua, she often went to see it. Although it was only a small ball of flame, it was lively and cute. It was very interesting. That small ball of flame was like those small animals, and they were all good friends. Just as Fengwu was thinking about pure flame, who had been staying in the body of the sword, seemed to feel something. It emerged from the body of Xiaochun's sword. A white, chubby little girl with wings adorably flew around the sword. The little girl's gaze passed through Fengwu's dantian and looked at a certain place in the hall. That was where the purple extreme sun flame was. The chubby little girl curled her lips in disdain and then flew back into the body of the sword. No one other than Fengwu, who was the owner of the sword, noticed this. The purple extreme sun flame, which had been very stable after being released by Zicheng, suddenly began to tremble when the chubby little girl appeared. It was almost unable to stand straight under the pressure of a superior. Fortunately, the pressure disappeared very quickly. The purple extreme sun flame, which had just gained sentience, heaved a sigh of relief. What kind of flame could have such a strong suppression on it? Could it be the second or third flame on the heavenly flame list? Don't blame it for not guessing the number 1 flame. The number 1 flame, they did not even know what it was called. How could they guess? The number 1 flame in the world had always been a legend among the heavenly flames. The heavenly flames knew of the existence of the number 1 flame, but no one knew what that flame was. Chapter 149. All the spiritual fires in the world had a special ability to sense each other. They might not know each other's location, but they could sense each other's existence. This was also why humans knew that there was a first heavenly fire that was more powerful than any other fire in the world. As the master of the purple heavenly sun fire, Zicheng was the only one who could sense the peculiarity of the purple heavenly sun fire. However, even though it had successfully merged with the purple heavenly sunfire, the purple heavenly sunfire's spiritual intelligence was still very weak. She couldn't sense any useful information. After the purple heavenly sunfire's power stabilized, Zicheng moved the heavenly fire in his hand closer to the frozen Eve. Eve's body actually melted into water under the power of the purple heavenly sunfire. Although the frozen Eve was successfully released, her breath was weak. It seemed that she wouldn't be able to survive, because she was hit by the black water and sealed in ice for such a long time. Eve's meridians had long been damaged by the cold. Her muscles were as stiff as a corpse's. After the ice on Eve's body melted, Zicheng let out a sigh of relief. He took out a Longan-sized pill from his space ring and fed it to Eve. The pill didn't look small, but when it came close to Eve's lips, it melted into water and flowed into Eve's body. That pill was naturally something that Zicheng had exchanged from the system. It was called the resurrection pill. As long as one was still breathing, no matter how serious their injuries were, they would immediately return to their original state. Of course, taking this pill wasn't without side effects. Taking a single resurrection pill would cause one to lose 20 years of life. It was equivalent to trading the next 20 years of life for the current health. Of course, there were better medicines in Zicheng's space. It wasn't that she couldn't exchange for pills that didn't require her to sacrifice her lifespan, but the amount of favorable impression points required was too high. If she really wanted to exchange for a pill like that, then she would lose more than half of the favorable impression points she had accumulated with great difficulty. This was definitely not an outcome she wanted to see. Fortunately, this was a world of magic and swords. As long as one practiced magic well and made a breakthrough, one's lifespan would be extended. 20 years of lifespan was nothing. A pill that was exchanged for 20 years of lifespan was of course very effective. Eve's originally pale lips and pale complexion gradually regained its rosy color. Her originally pale complexion had already returned to its usual healthy complexion. Eve groaned as she slowly opened her eyes. Her last memory was that she had pushed Fengwu away. She should have been killed by the black python. But what happened to her? She clearly remembered that she had already reached the edge of the pool and was about to leave. Due to the black python's speed, Eve didn't even know how she was attacked before she was completely frozen. She couldn't figure out what had happened and thought that she was still on the grassland, beside the pond. Eve, it's great that you woke up. Zicheng happily helped Eve up from the ground. Eve only realized that something was wrong when she saw Zicheng. She opened her eyes wide and looked forward. Elena, Fengwu, Drew, and even Senior Mingxi were all there. What was going on? Did she really leave the first trial? But why didn't she feel anything? And Fengwu? She clearly remembered that she had pushed her towards the black python. There was no way she was still alive. She must be dreaming. She must be dreaming. Eve suddenly looked at Fengwu and shook her head violently. Then, she stretched out her hands and patted her head. From an outsider's point of view, she seemed to have suffered a huge blow. Fengwu was the person that Eve had focused her attention on as soon as she woke up, but she didn't feel anything. To her, Eve was an insignificant existence. It wasn't that Fengwu couldn't feel Eve's murderous intent. Fengwu wouldn't go easy on someone who wanted to kill her. It was just that Fengwu remembered that her new friend, the black python, had already avenged her. Although she was saved by Zicheng in the end, it was still her luck to be alive. Since her good friend had already avenged her, they were now even. Fengwu wasn't in the mood to bicker with Eve. Therefore, as long as Eve didn't court death herself, Fengwu wouldn't take the initiative to deal with her in the future. Unfortunately, Eve didn't know this. She naturally thought that everyone was the same as her. If someone dared to harm her, she would find a chance to get rid of that person. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to sleep or eat in peace. Eve. Stop. Stop hitting. You just recovered. Don't hurt yourself again. Zicheng's eyes widened in shock when he saw Eve continuously hitting her head. It took him a few seconds before he realized that he had to stop Eve from hurting herself again. Others didn't know why Eve was acting like this, but Elena and Drew did. She was afraid and in disbelief. She didn't believe that she didn't kill Fengwu and was afraid of Fengwu's revenge. She also hoped that she was dreaming. That way, she could at least lie to herself that she had killed Fengwu. Stop hitting. It's useless. I can tell you right now that you're not dreaming. Everything you see is real. Fengwu isn't dead, and we came out safely. Elena didn't have a good impression of Eve anymore. It would be strange if she liked someone who harmed her classmate behind her back. Elena was a sword master, and most sword masters were straightforward. They were more open and above board when dealing with people. She looked down on people who used sneak attacks. Others might not have felt the coldness in Elena's tone, but Mingxi and Skycliff, who had a good relationship with Elena and were regular team members, could hear the strangeness in her tone. What happened? Elena was usually very protective of her juniors. She was never stingy when she needed help. But now she was so cold to the first-year Eve. It seemed that something had happened at the grassland checkpoint. Eve must have done something that Elena couldn't tolerate. Skycliff and Mingxi exchanged glances. Although they didn't say anything, they could guess what the other was thinking. Ajur sat to the side impatiently. He took out a pig trotter from his spatial ring and started chewing. He didn't care at all whether Eve was dead or alive. Compared to Mingxi's group, the other factions in the hall were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. How was this possible? This was a woman who had been hit by the black water python's black water. How could she still be alive? A person whose life was about to be cut off just by eating a pill, and his life force was immediately restored. This was simply too inconceivable. If it was a potion, it would have to be at least a legendary level potion to have such an effect. If that little girl could take out such a miraculous pill to save her companion, she should have a lot of it on her. If she only had one, they didn't believe that she would take it out to save someone. This kind of miraculous pill was not enough for herself. How could she take it out to save someone? Anyway, they won't believe it. Do you believe it? Mingxi's group didn't seem to notice those covetous gazes, and just sat there calmly. Ajur and Fengwu each took out delicious food and precious spiritual fruits. They generously took them out to share with everyone. Mingxi took the spiritual fruit that Fengwu girl handed to him. He was very surprised. He knew that most of the spiritual fruit trees were controlled by magical beasts. As a human, unless you had powerful strength, it was impossible to snatch food from the mouths of magical beasts. However, the Fengwu girl did it. Although he didn't know how Fengwu did it, It didn't prevent him from looking at Fengwu in a new light. No matter what method Fengwu used, she successfully proved her strength. When Fengwu saw Mingxi take the spiritual fruit she handed over, her expressionless face flushed with excitement. She looked extremely adorable. Mingxi instantly felt that the girl in front of him was unexpectedly cute. He now somewhat understood why Elena always said that Fengwu was so adorable that it made people want to bury their heads in her chest. What was he thinking? After Mingxi covered it up with a light cough, he immediately shifted his gaze away. He no longer looked at Fengwu's cute little face that could make people have nosebleeds. After 2 hours, people appeared in the hall from time to time. The siblings Tingfeng and Tingyu, Peiqing, Arguros and Ruglas, who hadn't appeared until now, also appeared in these 2 hours. Seeing them appear, everyone was finally relieved. At least no one in their temporary team died in this tomb of the god of sin. Because there was still some time before the 100 people who passed the test, the people who arrived in the hall sat in groups of 2s and 3s. There were also people who stood or sat alone against the pillars. In short, the hall was filled with chatter. It wasn't as quiet as Fengwu and the others had first seen. Most of the people who came later had heard from others that Zicheng had used a miraculous pill to save their friends. Most of them expressed their own ambitions for that mysterious pill. It seemed that Zicheng would become the target of most people in the second stage of the test, who asked her to reveal her wealth. There were very few weaklings among the adventurers who could train in the two-realm battlefield. Every expert's hands were stained with the blood of others. Killing others and seizing their treasures was something that these adventurers didn't feel any pressure at all. The entire hall was filled with a surging undercurrent. Almost everyone's attention was focused on Zicheng. Although they wanted the inheritance, there was only one inheritance. Whether or not they could obtain it was still uncertain. However, everyone had seen the pill on Zicheng. If they could obtain it, wouldn't that be equivalent to having an extra life? Somewhere in the hall, in an inconspicuous corner, an old man who looked rather down and out sat alone in a corner of the hall. Beside the old man was a cute young girl who looked to be 15 or 16 years old. This young girl was delicate and cute, especially her pair of naturally seductive eyes. As long as she took a liking to any man, that man would definitely give her his heart. Although the young girl's body wasn't as developed as Elena's, she definitely surpassed most girls of her age. An old man and a beautiful young girl. This combination sat in a small corner without attracting anyone's attention. Grandpa, will there really be that thing here? The young girl knew that a soundproof barrier had been set up around the two of them. However, she still deliberately lowered her voice when she spoke. There's more than a 50% chance that there will be. The old man's eyes suddenly lit up. In that instant, he didn't look like an old man in his twilight years at all. Unfortunately, this light flashed and the old man returned to being an inconspicuous old man in everyone's eyes. No one noticed the slight change in the old man. Chapter 151. Just as everyone was waiting for the second test to arrive, when the last person entered the hall, the voice that had sounded in the first test appeared again. Heavenly God Khan's voice sounded again. Little fellows, congratulations on reaching the second stage. After passing this stage, you will be able to reach the final place where I, Khan, will inherit my legacy. There one of you will receive my legacy. The number of people who can pass the last test is 10. Once the number is reached, the 10 people who pass the second test will be automatically teleported to the final place of inheritance. Good luck, adventurers. I will wait for you at the final place of inheritance. Don't make me wait too long. After saying these words, Kaven's voice gradually disappeared from the hall. At this time, a large door appeared in front of everyone. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, no one approached the door that suddenly appeared. At this time, the door opened by itself. With a creak, the door that was almost as tall as the roof of the hall opened. Inside the door, a white light shone. No one knew what was inside the door. The white light hid everything inside the door. Some people didn't want to be the first to rush because they weren't sure if there was great danger ahead. They just wanted others to explore the way first. Some people thought that first come first win. They didn't want to fall behind others. After all, there were only 10 places. If they could pass the test first, then they would have a better chance of receiving the inheritance. There were quite a number of people who thought this way. The moment the door opened, most of the adventurers, whether they were sword masters or magicians, started running as fast as they could. They all wanted to enter the door as soon as possible, shake off the crowd, and become one of the 10 people who passed in the end. Feng Wu and the others didn't go inside until most of the people had gone through the gate. Everyone was guessing what kind of world was behind the door, but they didn't think that they would see such a scene. After all 100 people entered the gate disappeared, and they arrived at a pitch-black cave. There were 5 passages in the cave, and no one knew where these 5 passages led to. Some of the passages seemed to be filled with red light, some made people feel cold, and some were pitch-black, to the point where they couldn't even see their own fingers. In short, each of the 5 passages looked different. There was a sign next to each passage. On it was written that each passage was limited to 20 people. In other words, the team of 100 people had to move separately. Those who entered earlier had already chosen the passage they wanted to take. Those who were slow could only choose the ones left behind by others. Although the sun and moon couldn't be seen in the cave, there were rows of luminous pearls inlaid on the walls. These luminous pearls weren't great treasures. They were only used for illumination. However, because they could emit light at night, and were exceptionally beautiful at night, they were very popular with noble ladies. Therefore, the price had always been very high. Now, in such a cave, there were rows of luminous pearls. Should it be said that this was God's graveyard? If it weren't for God's inheritance in front of them, the luminous pearls on the walls might have been dug out by these adventurers. Feng Wu and the others, including the newly joined Drew, had a total of 15 people. It was a little difficult for 15 people to fit into a team. While Feng Wu and the others were still discussing which passage to take, most people had already chosen their own. When 20 people entered a passage, that passage would disappear. When Feng Wu and the others were discussing which passage to take, 1 or 2 passages had already disappeared. This meant that 40 people had already entered those 2 passages. The remaining people could only choose a passage that didn't have enough people to take. Of the 2 passages that disappeared, one had a trace of golden light. It looked like the light of a treasure. The other was a relatively normal passage. There was no special light, nor did they feel any special energy flashing. In short, this was the most normal passage. Of these 2 passages, one might have a treasure, and the other might not be so dangerous. Naturally, it was the first choice of the adventurers who entered this level. Now there were only 3 paths left to choose from, and these 3 paths had already been chosen by many people. It was basically impossible for a team to stay together. Fortunately, they didn't have much hope for the whole team to stay together. In the end, everyone decided to follow their own feelings and choose the most suitable passage for themselves. Skycliff unsurprisingly chose the passage that emitted cold air. Ajur chose the red passage. This guy was red, and he was most sensitive to this color. Ajur originally wanted to take Feng Wu with him through the red passage. Unfortunately, after Ting Feng, Ting Yu, Ruglas and Elena joined in, the red passage was full. There was no space for Feng Wu at all. Feng Wu didn't care which path she took. To her, it was the same. After waving goodbye to Ajur and the others, Feng Wu chose the path that was so dark that she couldn't even see her own fingers. Mingxi originally wanted to take the passage that was full of cold air with Skycliff, but when he saw Feng Wu choose the dark passage alone, he frowned. He was still worried and walked to Feng Wu's side. Drew and Pei Qing also chose the same passage as Feng Wu. As for the rest of the people, they all chose the passage that Skycliff first chose. Those who chose the dark passage were slow or had difficulty choosing. Most of them chose the dark passage because the other passages were full. They had no choice but to choose the dark passage that no one was optimistic about. It was obvious that this path was dangerous. Moreover, it was extremely dangerous. Those who chose this path were either really confident or had no choice. The last 2 passageways were finally filled with people. The entrances to the passageways disappeared, and the cave behind them turned into a mountain wall. There was no light to illuminate the cave. When the light disappeared, Some people reflexively tried to use magic to create a ball of light, but they found that magic didn't work. Their magic and combat aura had all disappeared. They seemed to have become ordinary people. What's going on? Since they couldn't see each other, they could only confirm each other's age, gender, and location through their voices. The person who spoke didn't sound very loud. It was a young man, and he didn't seem to be more than 30 years old. At this time, the young man's voice was full of panic. In this continent that relied on strength, without the strength to survive, it was like how modern humans couldn't rely on any high-tech technology. The feeling of losing one's reliance in an instant was not only uncomfortable, but also more of a panic. You're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.